Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second budget workshop of the year. We're going to call to order and start with a Pledge of Allegiance with Crystal.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as everyone probably noticed, there was a number of blue pieces of paper updates to be inserted in your book. I think people are still doing that now, but along with those updates come updates from administration. So Carrie, I figured start there.
Yep. All right, so the budget you have in front of you incorporates all the feedback that we got from the first workshop and then last week's workshop at our board meeting. So what you see in front of you is a 1.25% decrease in the overall budget. So we're at 6.83 now. And I didn't put tight amounts up here. I just sort of kept keeping track of what has been removed from the first budget that you looked at. So from feedback, we removed world language at the middle school. We removed an ed tech at Green. If you recall, this was an open position that was sort of a ghost position. We thought we'd eliminate it last year. We have reduced the amount of iPads we're purchasing. We've moved all the copiers to lease. Principals in general reduced regular instruction supplies in a variety of ways. eSpark, which is one of the learning subscriptions, has been eliminated. Field trip fees were not eliminated, they were reduced, and we reduced paper overall. So those are all the things that are responsible for changes in warrant article 1, which I think is down 1.43%. Warrant article 2 in special ed, we removed in ed tech, and we moved copiers over to lease. So that warrant article is down 0.65. The CTE, as I said to you last time, the contribution that LRTC is expecting from us got reduced, so that is reflected in warrant article 3. Warrant article 4, other instruction, we reduced athletic supplies. I think the number was about 8,800 in athletic supplies. In warrant article 5, student and staff support, there were technology supplies separate from iPads and computers. Those hit warrant article 1. So those are the devices directly in front of students. So these supplies are TVs in classrooms. We reduced the every 3-year fee for Aruba. A couple other things in there. We moved copiers to lease. We reduced library books by, I think, $3 per student and reduced secretary position. Warrant article 6 is systems administration. That's central office and the business office. Paper, insurance, and copiers were moved to lease. In warrant article 7, school administration. So these are the main offices in each school building. The copiers, tuition, principal didn't need to take a class, and supplies in general. Transportation, insurance, and diesel came in at a lower price than we anticipated. And you're going to hear details about these warrant articles. You haven't heard from directors here, but this is sort of what they would have presented 2 weeks ago has been changed. In facilities, insurance was reduced. I reported to you last week that Dave is going to look to repair high school windows instead of replace, so that was a $50,000 cut. Reduced heating, fuel costs, vehicle repairs, and some emergency lighting. I think in one of the kitchens is done this year, so he's pulled it out of next year's budget. So what that means for revenue, I'm going to let Gabby talk a little bit because we've also made some changes in revenue.
The major change we've made is in section A, we've added efficiency main rebates, which relates to the work that we're having EEI do this year. We are anticipating this amount to come back either late this year or the beginning of fiscal year 26 for our ERV installation and upgrades for Green Central School and Leeds Central School. So We felt that it was best used to put towards fiscal year '26. And you see that that will reduce the overall increase to the towns. That really is the only shift there, other than the total budget general fund has been reduced a significant amount that Carrie had gone through as well. I did not write down that exact number, but I do have it.
So the increases to the towns average 7.63, and they're all now below 8%, which
And-
has been this number looming in front of us.
The total amount that has been reduced between the last time that we were here, so that was March 6th,
Yep.
to today is $463,756.
And Gabby and I just made a decision between yesterday and this morning on the efficiency main rebates, because we knew those were part of the package when we did the program with EEI. So it's a question of, do we get those rebates and apply it to the annual payments? But really, that number would be so insignificant, really, over the cost of the full loan, that we thought that it would be a better use of the money to just use it all as revenue in this year for the budget. It just seemed to be more impactful.
We
And
also-
to see a direct positive benefit from getting those rebates.
We also heard back from the individual that is my contact at Efficiency Maine as to what the lead time is on the completion of the project versus getting the money back. So I didn't want to pull the trigger on adding that in there. If it's like an 8-month lead time, you really never know what you're going to see. But he said about 4 to 5 weeks, so we felt good about putting it in there.
Okay, sizable, so that's nice to see.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions about the updates we just heard? Okay, thanks.
So I just want to start saying out loud that the district budget vote is May 8th at the high school at 6 o'clock, and that the referendum in the towns is on Thursday, May 22nd. Both of those will be very important for participation.
May 8th is not far away.
It is
so.
not.
So we're going to start tonight. You can see it's reviewing Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it makes some sense just to kind of go one by one there. I know there were some questions that might have arisen last time. I know folks have had the books now for a couple of weeks. So, we'll just kind of start with warrant Article 1, see if there's any more questions. We've got the full slate of principles here. Actually, I think there were questions at our last meeting that I think people wanted to ask. So this will be your opportunity before we dive into the warrant articles we haven't heard yet. So with that, we'll start with warrant Article 1, which is obviously a big one, regular instruction. Has anyone any new questions or questions they want to reach out to our principals or administration on here around warrant article number 1? Yes.
On each warrant article, I just want to know what we are losing in terms of people. So warrant article 1, how many people are we losing?
That's a good question.
So I can talk to you about positions,
Yes.
right? So it's
Yes.
positions.
How many positions are we losing?
Yep. So I have the number in my head of 21, but I think that is across regular instruction. The majority of those positions are regular instruction and special education. There's one position in transportation, one position in facilities. I think those are where those positions are.
So it's 21 across all the warrant articles.
21, with the majority of those in warrant Article 1 and 2, because that's where the majority of our employees are. And right now, in terms of elimination of a program, it would be just based on the feedback from last meeting, the only thing we're doing is eliminating world language at the middle school.
And how many of those 21 were unfilled positions?
Gosh. Oh, we had a decent number, so give me a second. Rebecca, do you remember in special ed? Hang on, I got the list.
While you're looking at that, I think it's worth clarifying something that Carrie just said, or maybe underlining something that, based on the feedback from last meeting, the only program that's being cut is the middle school language program. We talked extensively last time about the phys ed program, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that has been included here in these updates. So that those numbers we just saw do not include the elimination of phys ed twice a week at the elementary school. That's been retained.
Right now, I've got 6 unfilled, so I know we had several ed tech positions were unfilled. When we eliminated a teaching position at Turner Primary and moved it to Turner Elementary, we had a retirement, so. We eliminated 2 speech pathologist positions because they're not filled, so we just increased the contract line.
Okay.
If we end up hiring a speech pathologist, it's just less money to spend in so we'll still post for one, and we will just not have to spend as much in contracts. TPS had an ed tech interventionist that have been open since Kim's been here, so that one we eliminated. Green had 1 unfilled, 1 general ed because it was a retirement. So that one we left unfilled. Person retired and we didn't fill it. You guys remember? Your ed tech, at the high school, were both of yours unfilled? One was in special ed, one was regular ed? Your in-school suspension one was unfilled.
Correct. The ed tech one was filled.
Ed tech library? Oh, okay. We had an ed tech one that was filled, right?
And then an ed tech 3 at the high school that's unfilled, that we're not filling.
In special ed.
Yeah, yeah. And then for the vacant, we had 1 ed tech 1 out of the 6 that was vacant, 1 ed tech 1 that was in retirement.
Right.
And then the 4 were filled, and then we had the 1 at the high school.
So maybe half were filled? I think out of 21, maybe half were unfilled, half filled.
Okay.
So we still have unfilled positions, so there are opportunities for employees to transfer. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to add on that?
Just the most recent one was filled.
Right, and then we did eliminate another one at Green that was filled. That one was filled.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Anthony?
There's a proposal for a new teacher at Turner Elementary School. The justification is large student population, so the class sizes will be smaller with this additional teacher. How big would the class sizes be without that teacher, and what is the data on teacher-to-student ratio in terms of performance?
So remember, that position's being transferred from Turner Primary, so it's not a new. We're eliminating a teacher at Turner Primary and moving that position to Turner Elementary.
Okay.
So it's not a new, we're not adding a teaching position, right? Okay. I have class sizes, hang on. So class sizes at TES without that would be over 22, 23 kids per class. So with that 5th, they currently are 5 teachers in the 2nd grade, so they would be going to TES with 5 teachers. That's the goal. So TES has dropped in population enough so that we can pull that person out, that position out of TPS and move it to TES. So I think we balance learning and behavior. So the more kids that are in a room, the more classroom management issues you're dealing with. So it's that tipping point of how many kids makes it then difficult for the teacher to manage that classroom.
So we're moving from how many kids to 23 with that shift?
So with by
Theoretically.
adding the teacher to next year's 3rd grade at TES, class size will be about 18. If we remove that, class size will be over 22, closer to 23.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Kristen, do you want to add anything?
The only thing I would say is that we have done, we worked a lot with TTS in the 3rd grade also working very strong, like this is what these kids need. But we did do a lot of work trying to figure out, like, is it possible or is
Yeah.
it good, and it would not be good for students.
So they did work to try to, and I know Kristen was working on, she called and said, we're gonna work and see if we can make it work with just 4, but through their work, collaboration with the current second grade, they came to the conclusion that it was not a good move to increase class sizes to that amount.
Go ahead.
I don't know if this is the right time or place, but I had asked about the instructional software.
Yep. So principals are prepared to talk in particular about IXL, but I did want to just say eSpark was removed.
Correct.
I think there had been a question about that, and that's not being used anymore. Computer software across all the schools is down 17,000, so we did make some reductions there. But I think the question was, how is IXL being used? You know, what does that look like? We are still in the process of determining how there's different amounts of it that you can subscribe to, right? ELA only, math only, ELA math, social studies, like there's all these combinations. So we're in the process of looking at that, but just for you guys to get a sense of how IXL's being used, I'll defer to the principals to share with that, whoever wants to provide some info.
So reaching out to the teachers, I got a variety of insight. We do have students who are able to have specific skills worked on, reinforced throughout IXL, adjusting to exactly what they need, not just kids that need reinforcement, but on the other end of things, students that need additional challenge. So it does adjust that way as well. Many teachers will also use it, science and social studies in particular, to kind of reinforce or as a piece of their instruction. Then also in math and or to an extent literacy as well, using it as part of their rotation. So give the kids an opportunity to focus on the specific skills that they're working on, either to prepare for the upcoming lesson or to reinforce, use it as either formative assessment or potentially a summative assessment with the goal of mastery. So that's just a few little aspects. Everybody does have a general way in which they use it, but that they are tweaked depending upon the classroom and the specific needs of the kids.
Leeds only uses it only the math and the reading portion, and we agreed that the reading portion we don't need as necessarily as much because HMH has a component of that, so we can let go of the reading portion. The math materials don't have any kind of support like that for the students. They can directly take, the teachers directly take the NWEA scores, not just the overall score, but the sub-scores, and can enter that into IXL, and that will help adjust for the student. That also helps them with taking a test on a computer is hard, but so it gives them a little more time taking assessments on there. We did not use the science and social studies.
Then for Turner Elementary, we use all 4 sections as well. For the reading portion, it actually talks into reading, so they kind of like talk with each other. So whatever module they're on in into reading, it will provide like similar supports on that site. So that's how the reading teachers are using it within small groups. And then for math, we use it for, it all connects to the NWEA, so it's part of like the small groups or the rotations that they do. It's like an individual time. We also have students, because we have a lot of practices keeping as many students in the classroom as possible. So during those individual times, the case managers for students who have IEPs will go in as well, because they're co-teachers, and create individual lessons for students to that are specifically related to their goals. And then there's a staff member there to also help them. And then for science and social studies, they use it primarily for the quizzes that you can make on there. And for science, we often use mystery science. The videos are really, really good, but some of their worksheets and assessments are not super strong. So they combine the two of them to use it for like whatever they're learning from that video, but then how do you assess it to make sure it's strong.
Excuse me, at the high school, IXL is used on a very limited basis. We have a few subscriptions for students with IEPs. It's used for practice, but like I said, it's used on a very limited basis.
So you have a lot fewer subscriptions?
Very
Yeah.
much, yes.
If we use it. I do not use that. We use the eSmart.
Cut it, yeah.
And at the middle school, we have building-wide subscriptions for all 4 of the content areas. If you remember from the previous board meeting, we also had Alex Math in there, which we cut a reduction of like 6,000, because with illustrative math, it will connect directly with the IXL math. We currently had subscription math because the Alex only went to a 3rd grade reading level, and when IXL would allow us to go lower for students that needed to fill in gaps there. The ELA portion ties directly with the NWEA. We use it mostly for like extra skill practice, same thing for science and social studies, whatever topic they're working on, the content teacher can assign a practice for them to do that aligns with it, sometimes in the classroom, sometimes at home, mostly during our intervention block.
I think that's all the schools. Any follow-up to that, Bree?
Eventually, I'd like to know the cost for all of the computer software that we have subscriptions to.
I calculated how much we cut. So the sticky on my desk has the total, but I only did the cut, so we'll have to get that.
Right. Still on warrant Article 1. Anyone else? Clarifying questions on warrant Article 1. Go ahead.
Was there any discussion to how difficult it will be to bring back the position to the middle school with the removal of the world language position?
Was there discussion, say it again a little bit louder.
Of how hard it will be to bring a position back, whether it's a different area, but not.
So world language in general, incredibly difficult to fill the position. I would say it's in the same category as special ed. Like, I think, Evan, you went 2 years? Evan went 2 years with an open position. Last year was the first year. This school year is when he was able to fill it, but the 2 years that I was here prior to, we had a retirement and could not fill the position. So they're very difficult to fill. So if we had a person, I mean, we could open it and see if we got it, but I don't think it would be that difficult to alter the schedule to sort of build it back in, you know, a year or 2 down the road. I'm looking at Jana to see if that.
Yeah, so at the middle school, world language is part of our unified arts. And at the middle school level, students are exposed to 6 different unified arts. They take 2 each trimester, 1 on a green day, 1 on a white day, for a total of about 35 classes each. It's a very introductory level to get them sort of exposed to when they get to the high school and they can have more choice in what they're picking for their electives. And so what we put in for those unified arts, the only 2 that are required are health and PE. There's some suggested ones around the computer science, but and so the ones that are suggested, we're trying to keep in. Again, please understand, like, I don't want to lose world language. I definitely don't want to lose Jennifer. She's a wonderful human being. But I had that position open last year and filled with long-term stuff. It's been a different teacher every year that I've been there. And Jennifer is currently just working to finish like a conditional license now, or just did. To what Carrie said, like, they're incredibly hard to fill. We are in a little bit of a unique situation at the middle school where we could absorb the students that were going to world language into some of the other unified arts without increasing class sizes. And so our biggest goal was to make sure that none of the positions that we were reducing were causing people to sort of lose their job or increase class sizes, which is why when this was put up, it was a little bit hard to swallow, but it was also sort of like, it's a need at high school. We're keeping an incredibly great teacher in the district, which the kids at the middle school are then going to benefit from when they're up there. And so, sort of a long answer for if we were to bring world language back, it could replace one of the other unified arts that is suggested but not required.
Okay, so we discussed at the last meeting, or potentially if there was support for maintaining that position, but switching it to, let's say, like a math teacher. I guess my concern was once that position's gone, how hard will it be to bring those dollars back into the budget?
I think it depends, I mean, since I've been here, it really depends on the subsidy, it depends on the circumstances of the budget, like, I mean, we felt confident last year to add lacrosse because the increase to locals was like 1% to 2%, right? So people felt that adding a program was something that the community would support because we were able to keep the tax increase so low. It's not the circumstance we're in. So it really, I think, depends on the circumstance of the budget year. I mean, that's my best answer.
Just to kind of piggyback that and to Jana, we had discussed a little bit last week, I think it was last week, what it looks like without world language and if there is any sort of plan in place for that block. And it might be too early to address that, which.
No, there's a plan.
There's a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would not have done that if we couldn't make a plan, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's a plan in place, which is gonna take a little bit of creativity, but currently, our computer teacher is also serving as our tech integrator, and so she's only receiving students one of the 2 days, and the other day she's been working to help with tech integration throughout the building. And so we would just have to pivot on that, and I think we're in a place too, so she would receive students both days. In addition, like our music teacher is receiving students for traditional music classes as 7th grade, and then working on the opposite day for more lesson-based activities, and so it would be again, tweaking when we're doing some of the band lessons to have her do like 8th grade music. So currently 7th graders take music, 8 take computer, and we would move to students taking music 7, 8, and computer 7, 8.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Warrant Article 1. I think PE is included in Warrant Article 1.
We did not reduce PE.
Right.
The
I just
feedback
wanna
I
make sure
thought was
everyone's clear.
pretty universal, but,
Yeah.
so I did not take it out.
Looks like we're slowing down on Warrant Article 1, but just before we move on, just double checking. All right. Warrant Article 2, Special Education. This has obviously been a big one this year. We've talked a lot about why. Has anyone thought of any questions, or were there any questions that were carried over from prior meetings that you might want to ask now that Rebecca is here?
Can I just provide one update?
Please.
We have talked about the possibility of whether or not we want to begin to bill main care ourselves. And the question, Ashley, you asked about whether or not we can bill private insurance. We thought we'd have a little bit more information on that today. We had a meeting scheduled that didn't happen with some people at the DOE. So that's going to take some time. We're not super confident that it's going to be worth it. The schools that we've reached out to, and Gabby, you can correct me if I'm wrong, have been doing it for a very, very long time. So they can't tell us if it's saving them money or not, right? Because it's always been there. And there's potential for us to have reduced subsidy from us bringing this in. But we wouldn't see that impact for 2 years. So for 2 years, we'd be bringing in money, right? But when the subsidy gets decreased because we're bringing in money, then we'd hit a gap. So it's not.
And then to reverse what we were doing, it would take another 2 years to then get the money.
So then we'd stop billing, and then for 2 years be without that subsidy gap before we got it back. So it's just this, we're not convinced, but we're still in the early stages of looking at it. Yeah.
What about the thought of rather than bringing money in, these third-party contractors do the billing, and they're bringing it in and they're just billing the district less, so the expense is down? Because they're already billing anyhow, that's what they do, right? They bill the school, and they bill anyone else that's using their services, so why not they bill?
So I just want clarification. You're saying that if we had a speech pathologist come in and do the services, they bill on their own,
Right. then we're not bringing that money in, the expense is just lower. And they're already doing what they do anyhow.
I don't think that that is how we're allowed to do it, because we are paying the contractor to provide the services to our students under the IEP. So I believe that we are the ones that would have to bill for it. But these are all questions that we would need to ask our contacts that we didn't have the meeting with today, unfortunately.
I love that idea, by the way.
But I mean, most of the service providers are our own employees, like,
Yeah.
we're only talking, you know what I mean, like,
Right.
that, we can't, like,
But-
we can't have the OT sort of, you know, that kind of thing, they're our own employees, so we would be billing them
But
out.
the contractors that are much higher than our employees,
Yeah,
it
they
could help
might
to
charge us
offset that.
more for the billing, but yes,
Yeah.
I think you've got that note, right, Rebecca? Okay, we'll ask the questions. All good questions. And it's all, we are really literally, none of us have experience with this, just have lots of people to call and talk to and sort of find out. So we've got to, I think we got to balance the risk of the implications of making that leap.
Any more warrant Article 2 questions or thoughts? Yes, Alex?
Yep. So Jamie had asked about the total number of positions. You said around 10 were filled with people, and then I think Rebecca had said that 4 were in special ed. Was that
No, more than 4.
Or 6 were in, but 2 or 4 were filled?
She was talking about ed tech ones only.
Okay.
So we had 6 ed tech ones, 1 is a retirement, 1 is unfilled, 4 had people in it.
Okay. I was just curious, with this being the, one of the greater needs of the district, was it, I'm sure it was fleshed out well, but maybe you can do it for us, just how that might affect the services we're able to provide losing 4 ed techs.
Rebecca, why don't you come up and use the microwave? Microwave. Use the microwave. You know, warm up your coffee.
Quiet talker. So, one of the main reasons we were looking at Ed Tech ones is because when I first got to the district, we had probably around 12 Ed Tech ones in the local entitlement budget. And as a new director, I was told by the state that over time, it would behoove us to reduce that amount and really focus on, and I think this was a point made to the board prior to me coming here, that Ed Tech 2s and 3s could provide instruction, and they had in their job description many other things instructionally that they could do with students as opposed to an Ed Tech 1. Ed Tech 1s primarily can work in a classroom to be able to support the student. They need to be with another teacher at all times. They're not supposed to be alone with students. So quite often the Ed Tech 1s we have are working either supporting in resource rooms with special education teachers, or they're working one-on-one with students in general education settings. This will impact, we have a couple of students that this will impact in terms of these are their one-on-ones. The kind of the yabba to that is that we do have the Ed Tech 1s, we are encouraging them and supporting them to move to Ed Tech 2 positions, and then being able to kind of reallocate and look at how to really, it gives us an opportunity to build independence of other students, and then still be able to provide through the Ed Tech 2 a really skilled individual that will be able to meet not only that student's needs, but multiple students' needs in terms of providing instruction and support.
And we have enough unfilled ed tech
Yes.
to support, if they all decide to do that training, there's positions for
Yep,
them.
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've got Rebecca at the table now, so it's a great time to ask if anyone has anything else for warrant Article 2. Yes.
Can you explain just how the main care payment works at large, $750,000? Because I'm familiar with
Can't
what
hear
it
the
is.
questions back here.
Sure. I don't know if you want to try to repeat it,
Yeah.
Barbara.
The main behavioral health item in the special ed, the main care, district share of main care payment, just asking how that's calculated and what it represents.
I'm gonna let those two guys do it.
So this specifically is for the students that are placed in out-of-district schools. The services that are provided to them at that school that are billed to main care, this amount is the 32, roughly,
38.
thank you, 38% of the overall expense that is the state's share. The other 62% is the federal share. But what the state does is they cover that expense on our behalf, they pay it, and then they just reduce our subsidy. So it washes through us as revenue and expense, so we can see what it actually is. And it is directly correlated to all of the students that are receiving these services out of district placement. So it's 38% of the overall services that are billed to main care, their insurance.
These are just students that are receiving main care, not private health.
Correct. We do not handle anything to do with private health.
We didn't get a chance to ask that question, although it was suggested that it's possible we would not be able to bill private healthcare because of the legal obligation to provide a free and appropriate education regardless of that. But we don't have a firm answer on that.
But again, these are not for services that are provided in our schools. This is specific to out of district. So what those schools are billing for regular, students who have other insurance plans besides main care is unknown to us. That's not something that we deal with.
And out-of-district placements, it's safe to say they are therapeutic. Like they are way beyond what we can offer in terms of the amount of services and people that are working with those kids. So they're therapeutic day treatment settings.
Do you know how many kids approximately are receiving that?
Yes,
How many kids are receiving out-of-district placement services?
yes. So we have, I'm just getting to the page. I've written all this information down. So bear with me. I guess I wrote a lot of information down to share with all of you.
Is that?
Yes, all right, so, yes. I know.
I've seen that chart before.
Yes.
14, okay, wait. In the 9 to 12, potentially, we have 14 students at external out-of-district placements and 9 at the Margaret Murphy program in Green. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yes, so would that give us 18? So I have 18 K to 12, including the students at the Margaret Murphy program in Green.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, my numbers were not.
Add up.
Okay, and then at the high school level, we have between 5 and 6, we have a kiddo that we're transitioning back. But out of those students, we're also working to transition 4 back to public school in the process. But there's no guarantee that we will be able to do that. But we're trying to bring them back.
Go ahead.
Just to piggyback off of Ashley's question, so I'm assuming that most of these children probably qualify for Katie Beckett, so regardless of whether their parents have private health insurance, any child that has multiple disabilities automatically qualifies for main care. So most of them probably, just based on their program need, have Katie Beckett, which is then main care.
Thank you. So Katie Beckett is a fund for families that don't qualify for main care, but the children can access it through Katie Beckett, which is the name of whatever fund. I don't know where that name comes from, but now that you say that, I have worked with families in the past as a principal to try and access that when their children had significant health needs beyond what they were capable of doing and that their insurance would not cover.
So the process is the families will apply for main care, If their income is over the threshold of it being able to receive main care benefits and their child has a disability, then they apply for what's called Katie Beckett programming. And that is an exception for students with disabilities to also receive those services based on the severity of their need.
So a service that a family might get that they would be able to access is in-home support. So if a student has multiple disabilities, either physical disabilities or behavioral disabilities, there's lots of agencies out there that do in-home support that the family would not be able to access without main care support for the child. So there's a whole range of services that are available when they are facing that level of disability that private insurance will not pay for.
Oh, I almost thought I saw a hand go up there. Any more warrant Article 2? Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you.
Warrant Article 3, as I was reminded at the beginning of the meeting, is a very short one, but nevertheless, are there any questions around warrant Article 3, career and technical education? Seeing none, warrant Article number 4, other instruction. Any questions about warrant Article 4? I don't remember if there were new updates today.
No, we reduced $8,800
Oh,
in supplies from
correct.
this. Yeah.
So it had to be something because it's blue.
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions about that? Go ahead, Bree.
Is there a chance that we can get a little bit more of a breakdown on some of those other changes, I guess, so I don't like double up my question?
Other changes related to.
Those, that 88 in
Evan?
the general, like, did it come from multiple places? Is it from one line?
The majority of the supplies and equipment came from football supplies and equipment, and the dues and fees were a reduction from ice time and alpine ski fees
But that's just in the generic dues and fees line.
for athletics, yes.
Right.
And those were the sports that, when we talked about lacrosse last year, have been underfunded, sort of like families needing to raise money. So the hope would have been that we would have been able to fund those programs at the amount that they are while we add lacrosse, but that's not going to be possible.
I assume you meant skiing and hockey.
I don't know
Football, I
what-
can't imagine.
What did I say?
You just.
Well, you said in general they all are.
Yeah.
Oh,
They,
Yeah, but
sorry.
They're all underfunded.
Yes.
All underfunded.
I meant the program specifically to what Evan talked about. My apologies.
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead, Bree.
We have down that there's an increase for basketballs for the boys. So have girls' basketballs not doubled?
They have, but we have a supply of those.
I just had to ask. It seemed unfair that the boys were getting new basketballs and not the girls.
There will be plenty of new basketballs to go on.
That's so good to hear.
Just a curious question, follow up on that. Are they different sizes?
They are.
They are.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yes.
Welcome, Coral.
Hi.
Good to see you. Haven't had a chance to congratulate you on the One Act Play, your success. Sorry, Mr. McLean, I just wanted to say that.
No, very good. Very good. Max is really fun. So we talked about it last time when you weren't here. But.
Thank you.
Anyhow, warrant Article 4. Anything else there? Nope. Nope. Very good. We'll move on to warrant Article number 5, student and staff report. Nothing specific. I don't know if it I kind of like reminding us of what the updates are here
Yep.
too.
So in student and staff support, technology supplies, not what students are using, but teaching, the teaching screens, we had tried to, originally had put in replacements for TVs where there was more of an interactive screen. I don't remember what they're called.
Interactive displays.
Yeah, you nailed it. Just
Oh, yeah.
interactive displays. And then furthermore, I'll add, if it's okay, the technology supplies also include the cases and the cases for the iPads, that we reduced that line, that's the line over in regular instruction. The cases that go on them, the carrying bags, are in warrant article 5. So that is able to come down because we reduced the iPads.
Okay.
So the devices themselves are in regular instruction.
Yep.
Everything else we need to support that is in this warrant article.
Supporting devices.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we reduced those interactive screens and just put in some TVs just as regular, because it's every day that teachers are projecting and using the screen to help with the instruction. The copiers, another big decrease was the Aruba license. That's the one we have to pay every 3 years, that we now are going to use the technology reserve account, so we don't get this every 3 years $25,000 bump, that it will be something more consistent. We reduced library books and secretary position, the guidance.
Yes, go ahead.
I saw this letter that was in the back of our.
Yes, thank you.
Is
I
that
forgot that I
in-
gave it to you. No,
Is this
so
warrant?
two things I've given you that I meant to say at the beginning, but I forgot. So one, when we were talking about French last time, our staff members like to watch your meetings, so you should be thankful that they're watching. But Jennifer Groover was watching and heard a couple comments about, like, well, why are we even teaching French? So she wanted to just provide you with reasons why French is important. So I asked her if it was okay to share this with you, and she said, of course, that is. So that's why that's there. The second thing is a notice we got from Spurwink about reduction in services. So how this specifically impacts us. So we have an agreement with Spurwink. We provide space for counselors to work in our buildings. Their billing, it's all of that. Parents have to sign permission for the student to work with them. So it allows parents for their children to access counseling services without having to drive them somewhere, right? And without finding it. So if the parent wants their child to see a Spurwink counselor at school, there's a whole intake process, just as if you brought your child to a counselor anywhere else. So they're not our employees, but we provide space. So they're reducing, so that means that I think there's an open position at the high school and an open position at Leeds that they are not going to fill. They did say we had one applicant, we might fill it with that, so there's a Spurwink counselor at the other schools, but this is just this notification of reduction. So I meant to explain that at the beginning.
Can I add about ours? I think that open position is ours because the counselor that we have is not, she's like finishing up her certification, but she is with us and she's open. We have a waiting list for her.
Yeah, so we are hopeful, but
So it doesn't do anything. to
doesn't do
our
anything to
bottom
that.
line. Okay.
Doesn't do any of that.
Okay,
Nope.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Speaking of letters, we also got a letter from a staff member that was concerned about the cutting of the guidance secretary position. One of the things that was mentioned was the work that this position provides during the summer as a resource. I was wondering if Evan could touch on that, like how that's going to affect summer.
I would imagine that it would be more around a reshuffling of days than it would be around like shutting guidance down for the summer. So perhaps not having as many days open during the summer, but not being closed Saturday.
Do students have access to guidance over the summer?
To the guidance counselors, no, but more of a registrar position over the summer.
Typically, families will submit their, register, and the secretary is intaking and scheduling appointments and making sure that, for those first, I think your counselors come back a full week before school starts, is that accurate?
Yeah, at least, yep.
And that whole time is used for appointments to make sure kids have schedules for the start of school. So it's the pre-work that happens up to that. So we definitely need that position over the summer. It's just reduced days.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Warrant Article 5. Further. All right, let's move on to warrant article number 6, which is systems administration.
So these decreases, I'll plug that in so you guys can see. It was just paper, insurance, and copiers.
Paper, insurance, and copiers. Go ahead, Peter.
It might have already been mentioned. Clarify, this isn't our health insurance, correct? We haven't got that.
Liability insurance,
Liability, I was
correct.
gonna say, we
Thank
still
you.
haven't got our health.
Correct, thank you, thank you. Yep, I think we reported, what was the overall decrease in insurance?
I think it's 17,000.
17,000, yes. So it's across all the warrant articles, so.
But we're still a
still
week
waiting.
or
We've got no
2 or 3
other
weeks away on
information.
health.
No other information on health yet. As soon as we know, I'll send you an email.
Well, I figured, but I just was, you keep saying
Hot off
insurance,
the
I got
press.
excited for a minute that we might
I
actually
know,
know that
I
number.
know. Sorry.
Regardless of what it
We're
is,
supposed to
just
get a
knowing it helps.
Preliminary number next Thursday, but we're not gonna have our numbers until April 10th, so.
So we'll get the really
We're gonna be
helpful, it
scrambling
could
that morning.
be between 2% and 17%. Like that's the first number we'll get.
Oh, there you go. That's it. Yeah, windows are down a little.
Anyone on warrant Article 6? Okay. Move on to warrant Article number 7. This will be the last of our reviews tonight, correct? Yes, sorry. School administration, warrant Article 7. If anyone needs a reminder of the changes, they're up on the screen. Copiers, tuition, and supplies, Carrie mentioned earlier.
Has that been there all along?
No,
The
it came
different
down for a
articles?
little bit.
No, I had unplugged it because I was looking at
Oh,
other
okay.
screens.
I turned it on
So,
an
yeah,
article
no,
or two
I
ago,
just
I think.
realized that it would be helpful to put it back up.
Yeah. It was part of the presentation at first.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Anyone else? Warrant Article 7. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our review articles. It's about 6 o'clock. I think it would be nice to go through transportation, and then maybe we'll take a break to have something to eat. So probably after this review, Dave. And we will start getting into warrant Article 8. Carrie?
So Jim has a family emergency.
Okay.
So Gabby is prepared to talk about the transportation.
All right, you're gonna do a Jim impression? Or just-
I don't think that's gonna go well. So I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
Can't take the jersey out of you, so.
No, it's really hard to do that. It is, we've tried. It doesn't-
Jersey and transportation go hand in hand.
I'm a killer driver.
Thinking more about waste
Emphasis
management.
on
but
killer.
So, we'll refer to the slides. So, some items of note in the transportation, some changes here. We had a decrease in substitute salaries. There's a reduction in available staff to be able to do this. We certainly do have the need, but if we don't have people to staff it, then we don't want to over-expand our budget. Decrease in contracted services. This was for bus washing. I think that this was something that was potentially overlooked previously because we have been doing in-house bus washing all along. Well, I can't say all along. As long as I've been here, we've been doing it in-house. Increase in vehicle maintenance services. This is an increase in parts and labor expenses that we're seeing across everything. Decrease in auto insurance. This is still actually an increase over actual fiscal year 25 expenses, but it looks like a decrease because of how you budget for it. So last year, they told us to budget for 20% over your expense. This year, we're budgeting for 12% over actual expenses. So it looks like a decrease, which is great. Increase in online software subscription. So this current fiscal year is the end of a 3-year contract that we had with Busright. So, of course, it's time for an increase from them. It also includes similar tracking software for the vans. It's not something that parents can tie into, like an app, but it still does allow a lot of functionality for schools to know where people are if necessary, the transportation to do that as well. Also, a decrease in diesel fuel. Fun fact. We got several bids for diesel fuel, and the price is now at, I put a note in there, $2.58, I want to say. Gasoline, diesel, $2.58 per gallon, which is a lot less. We are at $3.15 a gallon this year, so that's why we're seeing a decrease there. Other items, decreases in tires due to the change in type of tire, and they're doing regular rotations on them, so they're getting more use out of them. There's an increase in equipment for additional rear cameras that are needed for installation. Increase in principal and interest for the purchase of 2 new, yep,
The rear cameras, are they looking at the kids or behind the bus?
I think it's behind the bus.
Okay.
Yeah. Increase in principal and interest for the purchase of 2 new buses and 3 vans. Increase in homeless van driver salaries. This is just a reallocation from other lines, so it comes out of multiple places. Those drivers aren't necessarily increasing in number, but we have the salaries spread out between out-of-district, homeless, and just regular van driving runs. So it's a reallocation there to align with what's happening now, not necessarily, we can't predict. And then a decrease in homeless gas. This expense is just included in regular gas charges.
I imagine that the bus rate is in one of these line items, but do we know about how much that bus rate software license costs?
$22,000.
$22,000.
It's invaluable.
No, I think it's been pretty successful. That's my feeling.
I will say that a lot of districts that I have spoken with over the last few weeks in my business manager meetings are talking about going to Bus Right from TransFinder. TransFinder was the program that the state was really pushing. It offers nothing compared to what Bus Right is, and everyone is going for Bus Right.
Okay.
We're hoping to see something back from the state.
There is some talk about, instead of offering a program, that the state offers money for schools to choose their program. We just don't know if that decision will get made before we have to do the budgeting.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Thank you for the updates.
Sure.
We'll now kind of page by page warrant Article 8 here. It starts on page 1 with student transport services. Which also extends onto page 2. Go ahead, Peter.
Right near the bottom, item 54,390, transportation vehicle maintenance, an increase of 15,000.
Yep, that's due to higher cost in supplies and services. That was one of the items that I had talked about in the presentation, the first slide.
Okay, but okay.
Well, just the cost to repair our buses and our vans on a regular basis is increasing. We have aging vehicles, we're trying to replace them, but with everything, whenever there's an inspection, we're mandated to make certain repairs to make sure that the buses are safe for the children, safe for the students.
So there's no specific area that's being focused on, it's just a general
No,
overall?
it's just a general overall increase that we are seeing in the cost of supplies and the labor to do this work.
Which I imagine is not something we're doing ourselves. It's one of the
We
area
are not.
garages.
We
correct?
outsource
Yeah,
it to a number of different companies that specialize in the buses and the vans that we have, yes.
yeah. All right. Again, that kind of spills onto page 2, student transport services. Go ahead.
Just a general question, because I don't know. What's Bus Hive?
So that is another software that they started using this year. That helps to track all of the field trips, sports runs, out of district, homeless as well. It's just an easier way for them to be able to pinpoint it, pull reports. They can process invoices right from there and send them out. They're migrating over to that, and it's working very well for them. We haven't gone 100%. It's still in the works of getting completely up and running and implemented.
Go ahead, Cal.
And off that question, does Bus Right doesn't have the ability to be able to
Does
track
not.
it?
No. They tried to work with Bus Right to get it to have those capabilities, but that wasn't something that the software is set up for. The Hive software allows them to put in the different account strings that I need to code the field trips and sports trips to. So when I can pull my report, they can just send that over to me, and I can calculate things that way and run it.
it's been
That's the
incredibly
goal.
difficult in the past to know the actual cost of these different transportation lines. So homeless transportation, athletic transportation, because there's so many different lines. If nothing gets coded to the right place, then you just never really know. how much something's costing you. So that's really what we need to be able to do. And it helps with the scheduling. Like, I know Bus Hive is used for athletics, and, you know, as things change, making sure bus drivers know where they're supposed to go. It includes a map or a geographic location. There's all kinds of other things that are a part of it that help the drivers know where they're supposed to be.
Bree, you had your hand up?
I did. On line item 56040, we are now requiring the bus drivers have uniforms.
Nope, we're not requiring them to have uniforms. Jim felt that it would be good to get T-shirts for the bus drivers, boost morale, and have them look spiffy.
Which line item is this?
56040.
$1,100.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yes. Pages 1 and 2. Go ahead, Peter.
I questioned that one, but anyways, we'll move past it. For right now, $3.30 is the current price that I take it. What do we have last year for gas price?
What did we budget for this year, you mean? I think it was $3.60.
Your budget this year, $3.30.
Yep. I think that we budgeted for our current year at $3.60. The prices were higher this time last year.
Okay. Because I was curious, that's higher than a lot of what we're seeing now, but we're just assuming.
Right now, but we don't know where it's going to go. So that's kind of a little bit of a buffer. Also, the mileage itself can fluctuate based on the number of students and where we need to go.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yep. Do we receive any breaks on the insurance based on the, like, Bus Hive or Bus Right? You know, sometimes, like, I think it's State Farm has, like, Drive Safe and Saves the thing. You, like, don't speed and don't accelerate quickly, you get, like, a certain percentage off. I didn't know if there was any such thing for insurance breaks on that.
Like that they would be tracking the bus's movements themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I've had dealt with a fleet before where you can look at the speed of the, you know, truck, and you can see when they accelerated quickly or broke suddenly, and I don't know, sometimes stuff like that can get worked into insurance, that if the program does, you know, monitor stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm curious if we monitor that closely.
We might not want to give it to them.
Well, it might not do it either, so.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that. I can look into that with our insurance company.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sometimes the insurance company allows you to, or just having that program is a
I know we can
discount.
do that on the bus program. I don't know about the van one.
Oh.
The speed of buses, I know it does that.
I think what he might be talking about is they have is the speed, but braking time and all that
Well,
stuff.
yeah, I mean, there's all
Yeah.
different
No, I
kinds of
understand,
it, but
yeah.
it just.
Yes.
I'm sorry, was there anybody else?
I don't-
before us?
Oh,
No,
did you?
I was, no,
Okay.
I just came up after.
Going back, I saw this early on and thought it was cut. I'm going back to what, I think it was Bree brought it up, is the uniforms?
Yep.
Or the T-shirts. I can understand the thought behind it, but part of me has an issue with us cutting positions this year and still having that in the budget. So I mean, I would personally like to see that taken out, because that's just a benefit to the bus drivers as a thank you, but yet we're telling other people you're fired. So that just doesn't sit necessarily well with me. So I guess I would make a motion at this time to remove the transportation uniforms, which does make you think that they were requiring uniforms at this point, for $1,100.
Is there a second for that?
Yes.
Bree. So we'll discuss that. Anyone else have thoughts around the T-shirts?
Bottle drive.
I'm sorry?
Bottle drive
Bottle
or fundraise.
I almost wish Jim was here to talk about it. I'm curious, I know we've had such a morale issue with the bus drivers, and I know we've had an issue with hiring bus drivers. I would hate to do anything that works counter to that, although I understand your sentiments, Peter. So I wish Jim was here to speak to why he wanted it so much. Yes.
But in that same vein, yes, we have had so many issues with bus drivers coming and going that they pass them a T-shirt for the next one. Are we giving them this T-shirt that we've spent this money on? and then a month after they've been hired, they decide to leave. Right? So it's just a t-shirt. I think there are so many other ways we can continue to boost morale in the department.
So, and I think we have done that. We have not had an issue like that in
Yeah.
a year, right? So that first year of transition was spicy. But things have settled down and it's not like it was. So I would really like the opportunity to talk with Jim and come back before we just make that decision now, just for the sake of, and if we want to take it out after, we can take it out, and we may bring that back to you anyway, but I guess I'd like the opportunity to just have a conversation with him before we just remove it now.
I'm
Well,
hopeful
we
that,
can remove it and put it back in.
I'm hopeful that Jim will be able to be with us maybe for updates at the next meeting.
Yeah. I mean, we've made a note that
Yeah.
that's something that
With
people
that,
want to
I'd
come
like
back
to
to.
move to postpone the discussion to the next meeting when Jim can be here to be part of it.
Can we do that with a motion and a second?
Yes, we need someone to second what I just said.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
which Jamie did.
Excuse me, can I just have you speak a little bit louder so
Yep.
I can?
Yep.
Thank you.
I made a motion to postpone this discussion until the next meeting, and it was seconded by Jamie. Any discussion around that? All those in favor of postponing? All those opposed to postponing? Just 3. Anyone abstaining there? I don't believe so. Okay, so we will come back to that the next meeting with Jim. So, still on student transport services, pages 1 and 2 of warrant article 8. Yes, go ahead, Ben.
I know we discussed, it's kind of lumped in, but we were talking at the Tri-Town meeting about consolidating, fuel and stuff like that. Have we gone anywhere with that at all?
No, I think that we had talked about consolidation of disposal
Propane.
services.
I thought we were talking propane too.
They were. We weren't really part of that discussion. They were discussing about it, the 3
I
towns.
don't recall hearing that. I know that we had talked about, I think it was.
Yeah, you're right, Peter.
Garbage.
It was- Any-
But we already have a 3-year contract for propane,
Yeah.
so we couldn't
Do anything.
do anything with that. And we did just sign a contract for heating fuel and diesel.
Okay.
But we'll follow up on the garbage. That was the one that there was some conversation about.
I think it was decided we all 4 use the same garbage
Yes,
company.
we use the same company, yeah.
Not a lot of choices there, I don't think, anyway, but go ahead.
The electricity line, what's the 22% increase for? That's,
Page,
5, 6,
page
220 on
about
page
a third of
2.
the way down, transport electricity.
So, that particular line is not a part of our net energy bill, the solar refunds that we're receiving. They are only participating, or only our larger accounts are participating in that program. Our rate for budgeting for this current fiscal year was around 9.5%. We are looking at a much larger increase. I'm just starting to get preliminary numbers in. We're going to talk at finance about that initially, but that will come to the board as well. The reason that you're seeing it, well, you will see a decrease in facilities is we've started to realize the benefits of the net energy program that we have with the solar contract, but we do not see that here. And the increases are getting higher because of the costs of natural gas and whatnot right now.
Gabby and I had a brief conversation because there was talk in Augusta about eliminating the solar credit program. So I sort of was like, well, what would that cost us? About $53,000 would be what we would lose if those went away. I think they stopped talking about it, but I had a minor panic because it's a pretty substantial amount that we benefit from.
Because we generate.
Because we are part of a solar farm, yes.
All right. Well, we're still on page 1 and 2, which is student transport services in warrant article 8. But there are only 3 pages to warrant article 8. So I'll open it up to the rest of warrant article 8. Go ahead, Anthony.
In the top section, transport out of district reimbursement parents.
Yes, so one of the items that we pay for transportation is the reimbursing mileage to parents. If we are not able to provide all of the transportation for all of our out-of-district students, we ask the parents to transport them, and we then reimburse it. If the parent opts to do that, it's not something that we require them to do because of, our lack of ability, then we do not reimburse that. But we have several parents that we do that.
Go ahead, Bree.
Do we know exactly how many?
It fluctuates. I think, there's about, what do we have, 2 right this second? But it's it's every day.
It is, and the other factor is the safety of the student. If we cannot safely transport them, we also work with the parent, and if the parent is able to transport, they do that as well. And so we do the mileage reimbursement. We have one long-termer
Yes.
that has been doing that, and as Gabby said, there are times when we're not able to transport.
So it's only if transportation is in their IEP.
Yes.
So it's not just any parent who wants to do it. If it's something that is a requirement as part of the IEP, that's when that might come into play.
So this is more of an estimate since it
Correct.
fluctuates.
What do we use for reimbursement rate?
The federal reimbursement rate. So right now it's 70 cents a mile.
Now, is that required as part of the program, or is that just what we choose to use because of?
There's either a state rate or a federal rate, and I have pooled among other business managers as to what they do. Most of them follow the federal rate.
Kyle?
And this is only for special education?
Right, you said it was only if it's required by their IEP.
Yes.
Yep.
The other parents we might reimburse is if they are qualified under homeless, McKinney-Vento.
But that's a separate set of
It's a
lines.
separate set of lines, but I'm just like, that's the only other group that we might do that.
And that also fluctuates.
But they have to be legally, like, they have to be qualified as a homeless student, and we can't transport them.
Go ahead.
Just a curious question for both those 2 lines, the out-of-district and the homeless parent one. Roughly speaking, do we tend to use up this amount, or?
So I will say last year, we used up the homeless and then some.
Okay.
It's based on where the students are presently living,
Of course.
right? And we can't control that. Another piece of that is if we can't source that, if we can't staff that, it's either we ask the parents to do the transport or we have to outsource it to another company, which is even more expensive. So, of course, we always try to use our own staff, but sometimes it isn't feasible. And sometimes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you highlighted we used quite a bit of it this year. It looks like the prior actual was like 14,000, we're only budgeting 5. We think that's realistic, it's gonna come down that much? Or we just don't know?
We don't know.
Is this
It
based-
changes all the
Yeah.
time. Yep. It has not been as significant this year as it was last year.
Okay. So warrant article 8, again, we started with student transport services. We've been talking more recently about the transportation for out-of-district placements as well as transportation for homeless students. Are there any further questions about article 8 transportation? Yes, Scott?
I just want to go back to the bus rate. Is there
Yep.
any option of teaming up with other districts to pool together?
I can ask Jim to look into that. I don't think so, because the way that bus rate works is it's the number of iPads that you need and the subscriptions. So we're basically leasing the iPads and the software from them. They don't want us to use our own equipment, correct?
Yep.
Yes. So we have to use their iPads with their proprietary software on it that plugs into the buses.
And it's a per iPad charge.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it was less, but it's a little bit more. It's not that significant. I think we added 2 iPads this year, and that's part of the bigger cost increase. But we will ask the questions to see.
Anyone else on the transportation warrant article number 8? All right, seeing none, it is 6:20. It's just about time to break for sandwiches. Thank you, Dave. I'd like to try to keep this as close to 15, maybe 20 minutes as we can. All right. We will come back. Getting back into the warrant article discussion. We just finished warrant article number 8, which was transportation, and we're coming into warrant article 9, which is facilities. Kira, do you want to start anything off, or we'll go straight to Dave?
Right to Dave.
All right.
Good evening. Dave Coburn, Facility Director. Facility maintenance, warrant 9, we have property insurance increased based on guidance from the MSMA. Maintenance agreements increased due to change in contract to include comprehensive mechanical and ventilation. Telephone expenses increased due to the addition of regular fax lines. Propane expenses down based on a 3-year contractual rate agreement. GCS boiler is now propane only, so there is an increase here but a decrease in oil. Fluctuation in furniture and fixture lines based on principals' requests. The larger increases are due to the capital minor projects, or minor capital projects. At TPS, Turner Primary School, includes the gym floor repair, catch basins, door replacement, front facade, school zone, flashing signs. At Turner Elementary School, we have fascia and soffit work, fence installation, electrical outlets added to the rooms, copper replacement. At Green Central School, bleacher module replacements, parking lot repairs, bathroom fixtures, groundwork near the flagpole. At Leeds Central, includes exterior cafeteria door, paving, parking lot lighting, Leeds Central School sign. At Tripp Middle School, includes fire retardant shades, exterior painting, asbestos removal, carpet replacement, and also aluminum wrap around the trim. At Levitt Area High School, includes additional parking lights, lighting, parking lot repairs, heating valve shutoffs, locker replacement in the locker room, window repairs, and sprinkler system repairs. At Central Office, we have crosswalk flashing lights, painting, refinishing hardwood floors, and also siding replacement.
Very good. We'll go through this line by line like we have others. This one is certainly longer than it was. We'll start right off with Turner Primary School on page 1. Peter.
This is a general overall. Fax machines?
I think Wally might be the best to talk about the fax machines.
Are we talking true fax machines? Because I thought most of it went faxed via computer now.
So, believe it or not, we still need to be able to accept and send faxes. Most of it's health related. Nurses need to be able to send and receive forms. It's actually been a pain point for me this year. I'm still working on making.
So they still can't
Doctors
copy it, or they don't scan it?
Unfortunately, not everybody's on board with submitting digitally yet. So we've been having to maintain fax machines. Trust me, I want them to go away just as much as anybody.
It's fun of it for AOL.
But this is our health system, though. That's just the state of doctors and secure transmission of health records. Yeah.
Wally, we had migrated those fax lines over to the new phone system, and we had had a lot of issues with that, so we are going back to actual phone lines for the fax system. I know at Central Office, we're having significant issues with getting faxes out, so Wally is migrating everybody back to the regular phone lines for fax machines because of these issues.
That's like dial-up, remember?
That's right, dial it all day long.
You knew it was working though. It made noise. You know it's working.
So with the fax machine.
All right. So that was probably across the board, like you
Yeah,
said,
that's
Peter.
right, that was,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, so I was curious.
But page 1 is still focused on Turner Primary School. Does anyone have any questions about the Turner Primary School line items? Go ahead, Bree.
I'm just curious, and it's to our benefit, but there's a significant decrease for the custodial salary? I don't,
We have different staff. First of all, last year we were budgeting differently because we were in contract negotiations. So I had budgeted a large increase just in the one location. I think I have better notes on my last one.
yeah, I see that.
Budgeted total increase for all custodians for fiscal year '25 in that line because we were under negotiation and we didn't know exactly how it was going to pan out.
Okay.
All right, Turner Primary School.
I want Dave to talk about the
Dave, you wanna
flashing
talk about
lights.
the flashing lights?
The flashing lights?
Yeah, you're the one that
The
found
good
it.
news that you found?
So in looking through the budget, we put in for flashing lights, and there was an overage on the flashing lights by $18,500, so.
The next update will reflect that.
Yeah, so instead of the 37, it's 18.5 for 2 of the lights, so.
So it's in that last line, 54300, in that amount is
So
the,
you'll see a $18,500 reduction in the next round of updates.
I assume this is just one coming from each direction or something, so.
And one aimed directly at.
And Dave saw that like 2.5 minutes
Yeah.
after I printed those papers, so I opted to not reprint again.
it'll start when Jamie Watt runs by. Your car will trigger them.
And
We'll
this
put
is
special
for
sensors on them.
proposed new, right, not existing?
We do not have flashing lights at Turner Primary, and that school is the bulk of complaints that I receive is about traffic in front of Turner Primary School.
They're all from me.
No, not true, not
The way that Joe was
true.
talking.
But bus drivers, staff,
I understand
Members of the
the
public.
need, but I foresee your complaint numbers not going down a lot. I don't imagine the flashing light's gonna, I understand the need of them and so forth, there's that one more step, but
yeah, we don't have,
people are
yeah.
idiots are idiots.
Yep.
Anyway, primary school, we might as well move on. Page 2 is Turner Elementary School. Doesn't mean you have to stop asking questions about the primary school, but we'll open it up to the elementary school now as well. Peter?
The fence is up along the road.
Yes.
Are we still sticking with the plastic, or are we going to something different?
We're gonna try to do the PVC, we're gonna try to match up the fence. It seems like every time that piece gets broke, we kind of take a section off to replace what we have. So we're gonna try to match up what we have and continue with the fence line from the property next to Big's old place, further down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you tell me, please, how much is the bottle filling stations?
So it depends on what you have, like construction-wise, whether it's concrete walls. Some are more expensive than others, but for the most part, they're $5,000, in between 4 and 5.
And how many are we looking to put at CES?
Just one. We've been adding them each year for budget process, and we need one more for TES, pretty much to take care of the needs in
But
each.
they do have some here already.
Yes, yeah, we have 2, we're just looking to put one more in one pod, which is B pod here.
At the elementary level, do they use the bottle filler that often? To actually Oh, I'm getting lots of
Get
yeses.
them all
I'm not
set.
even talking about it.
They drink water.
Making sure my kids have their water bottles every day
Well, I
is a major.
understand that, but
I never did.
It's a thing.
But
Water bottles are a thing.
having the bottle with them would have me question that all day, you know. Yes, it's good to drink lots of water, but I can see it being a hassle, especially for younger kids as well. So I would question that that might be. But that actually wasn't my question. That just popped in. Is the music room carpet,
Yeah.
are we getting rid of it?
No, we're gonna put new carpet.
Why? I understand music rooms require for acoustics, I understand that to a point, but it is a point, it is elementary, and is this the last rug in the facility? Or one of, you know, I'm very much anti-rugs.
I forgot you're on the rug kick.
I despise rugs in the school system. I don't think there should be any.
I like where you're going with that. So the carpet it's frayed, it's kind of dangerous as far as it's a trip hazard for the kids if they're carrying any type of equipment.
I understand, I'm all for getting rid of it.
Yeah. It's acoustics, that's, when I talk to the music teachers, that's what they prefer. I prefer LVT tile, but I would think they've had a carpet for a long time, so I really don't have that was just a choice for them.
Yeah, go ahead, Bree.
I would be curious to know, though, what it could look like if we could put in a tile floor in place of the carpet. It's not unheard of. There are other music rooms in our district that don't have carpet on the floor and are able to make beautiful sound with tile on the floor.
Yeah, that sounds terrific.
My guess is it has to do with the size of the room as well. I know this
So-
music room's not that big, so.
I guess is the question because of the carpet, because the LVT price would be the same, like whether it's carpet or LVT,
I don't know, you tell me.
it's the same.
Is it?
It was basically what the music teacher preferred to have.
Did we already mention like what the approximate value of that item is? Because it's kind of
Yeah,
lumped in with a
it's-
bunch of other things.
It was for music room carpets, $4,000.
Okay. Anthony, you had some.
The LVT is gonna last longer, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
I think, yeah, the transition would be a little different because it steps up. So you'd have to have more woodwork involved with the transition. I don't think you can LVT up a step, but it would have to be, there would be more work to it, but it would be the same cost pretty much.
I understand, similar to with the t-shirt, I myself would very much encourage us to go the LVT, so I don't know how I would make the motion, but would you prefer to have a discussion?
Yeah, could we just think about it and come back to us?
Well, so the cost is the same. So I guess that level of detail, like, I think we've heard that. We can go back and have conversations with teachers, but I'm not sure, well, you can tell us what you want, but that seems to be a level of detail that like is getting into sort of like without conversations with the teacher. I don't want to ask the teacher to come here and justify her choices. The cost won't change anything, but we've heard the feedback and we'll have the conversation, but.
Well, but I'm at the point now. We've had this discussion over the years, decades for carpets,
Yep.
and we have insisted to teachers who have always wanted on carpets, no, you're getting LVT. And the board has done that. So I myself would be encouraging, I'm not looking to make a motion now and see where it goes, but I would like to see if, you know.
So carpets are being eliminated everywhere. I would say the only two spaces that it's staying are the library and music that I'm hearing, correct?
Yes.
It's not in anywhere else.
Yeah, but I personally would like to see it out of the school completely. Number one, you get rid of the whole level of secondary equipment that you might need to deal with a carpet. Number two, carpets, we all know what they breed and the length of owning them. So I myself would have little reason for any carpet. So I guess I would like us to come back, not make the motion at this point, but like to see it change and come back with the reasons behind it.
I can't speak specifically to that room and whether or not the acoustics would be very difficult. Like it's a music room is a noisy place, so I don't know if it would make it too noisy for anybody to really be able to focus. I think that's something we need to be considerate of. I don't know if that's true. I'm just offering that as feedback that even if we wanted it all, it may not be good for kids and the teacher if it's too noisy for anybody to really be able to think. So I just don't know if that's the case.
All right, so more to come. Anyone else? Turner Primary School, Turner Elementary School, pages 1, pages 2.
One more.
Yes.
I just don't know, Dave, because this is not my field of expertise. So how much is it to add an additional outlet to each classroom?
So we have a price of $11,860, and the outlets are, most of this building, they're on the exterior walls, and they're in specific spots, and it was built a long time ago, and you didn't really use a lot of electricity. So the added outlets were what we've added through the years. We're just trying to get a model base on each one of the rooms so that you can plug in the outlets to every wall. So we're adding additional outlets to each room, so there'd be 3 outlets per room.
I can remember going on the
Yep.
PTV tour of the school, particularly Turner Elementary, and the electrical outlet situation was pretty different from room to room and not convenient. There was a lot of interesting strings of, or attempted strings of cords and things that weren't really safe.
This was the school that had the most violations in
Oh,
terms
your
of the
presentation.
extension cords and stuff. Like, it was out of control. And it wasn't teachers' fault, like, there wasn't enough places to plug in.
But you're saying right now, most classrooms only have 2 outlets.
2, yes, yeah.
How do they function?
Yes, that's.
Extension
yes.
cords.
Extension cords.
When
Which
admin
turns
told us-
out are illegal.
Who knew?
So
Oh,
we're
for 90 days though, didn't you say?
I said that some people
So you
said
can
that was
unplug
a
it and then
solution,
replug it
and I
and
did
all
not
that.
approve of that solution. Good memory.
Anthony, did you have your hand up?
For page 3, yeah.
Oh, page 3. Well, we might as well get on to
I
Green.
don't mean to rush there.
No, it's fine. Green Central School, page 3. We might as well open it up. Anthony, if you want to kick it off.
So the, down toward the end, 57,330, custodian furniture and fixtures. The new chairs for the conference room and student desk chairs, these are replacements, these are brand new for a new room?
So most of them are replacements. Anytime that principals are normally trying to replace classroom furniture, chairs that are either broken or we can't repair. So most of it is replacement.
Okay.
So I can
Go ahead,
also
Deb.
speak to that if I may. The ones that we have in there are from the Share Center. They've seen better days. They came in, the bottoms were rusted. So the custodial staff was kind enough, I gave them a grinder after hours. They were able to grind the rust off and then spray painted them. And they've held up for a while. I think they're beyond their life expectancy. And they're not, despite their best effort, they're not the cleanest looking. So we like to have something a little different when parents and folks come in.
So that's Green Central School we're on now. There's a little bit of it on page 4 as well, Peter.
I assume, go back to what Jen was talking about, I assume you were talking about the conference room chairs?
Correct.
That's what you were talking about?
Yep.
What, this, this number isn't broken down a lot more than what I'm seeing here. So what is that compared to the rest? I assume majority of that 4,600 was student desks and chairs. Is that true, or what's the breakdown of that 4,600?
Yeah, Doug has it.
What is it, 5734?
Yeah, we're on 57330
330.
towards the bottom of page 3.
So,
That's-
It's a race. Gabby has it, but she's waiting. So
I'm not even bothering.
Gabby, if you've got it, go right ahead.
so I have, Safco fabric computer chairs and Staples Essential ergonomic swivel task chairs for, I think those are for the conference room, am I
I
right?
believe that is correct, yeah.
Yeah, so it's about $2,500, $2,400 for the total of 8 chairs.
2 different styles, I take it, from what I heard?
Yes.
So half of that is conference room, the other half is student desks and,
I would say a third.
oh, the increase, I'm sorry, I'm talking more of the increase.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
but the total is 6,000, so. Is this the first room that we sometimes have board meetings in, not board, but subcommittee meetings in?
No.
Is that
That's
that
the,
first?
that's the teacher's room.
Okay, so where's the?
Little teacher's room.
The conference
Kind
room
of
is
combined with your office.
Doug's office.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm talking, yeah, that's where subcommittees and executives have been in Doug.
No, it's the room after that.
Which room
Yeah,
is
no, it's Doug's room.
Yeah, it's Doug's-
this? Your office, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's Doug's room.
Doug's office is.
Doug's office,
My,
that's a
my
conference
office
room.
is the back corner.
Yeah,
It is
his
the
desk is,
We,
well,
we
we,
don't typically have meetings in Doug's office.
okay, I'm going back when we
Oh,
always used to.
okay, all right.
Last year.
Yeah, apparently we
I
did
sat
last
in-
year.
I sat in there for a meeting.
Oh, okay, never mind.
It was
But that's the
just
room
a
we're talking about.
subcommittee. It was a curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
subcommittee
one
meeting.
time.
All right. We've all been to Doug's office.
I haven't.
Well, Kyle, next time we're agreed.
PTB will have to be in there
All
next.
right. Anything else here? Green Central School, pages 3 and a touch of page 4.
Yes, sorry, I do.
Go ahead.
Again, can I ask about the bottle filling station, please?
Yes. We have one remaining upstairs in the wing for the bottle filling station, so that's $4,000 for that. And I think it's the only jug of water we still have
Correct.
that we
Great,
use.
that's the 6th grade wing.
Yeah, 6th grade wing.
What is replace bleacher seat modules? I just don't know.
So the bleachers, the modules are actually the seats.
The plastic part?
Yeah, the plastic parts. So when we had the
Will they be
vent
cushioned?
last, what's that?
Will they be cushioned?
I don't believe
Recline,
so.
heated.
If you want to add some money,
You've
they
never
can
been
be
to a
cushioned.
town meeting in the GCS gym for 6 hours?
So,
Makes the
yeah.
meeting go faster.
No, it goes for 6 hours.
So we have a lot of cracked seats at
Yeah.
the bleachers.
Okay. How much is that gonna be?
6,300.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Kyle.
What's the maintenance on the bottle filling stations, like a rough idea of,
So usually there's a filter depending on the use, and we usually buy them on Amazon, anywhere from $2 to $3. They usually last a month or so. Depending on, I mean, the high school kids drink a lot of water, so we have to change them more often there, but,
as far as the unit goes, though, is reliability wise,
Yeah.
there's no issues with them?
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times you can retrofit them if you have a Halsey Taylor bottom to it or a specific type, they retrofit. But most of the new ones, you have to buy the whole unit.
And correct me if I'm wrong, those are also the stations that eliminated lead through the filtering?
Yes,
That's what I remembered, how we solved the lead problem.
yes.
Anyone else with Green Central School? All right, we're going to move on to Lead Central School, page 4 and a little bit of page 5. Lead Central School, yes.
I have two on page 4, which was custodian furniture and fixtures, 57330, and then just a question on the signage on the building.
Yeah.
What that, this sounds like it's something exciting. Okay.
So as far as like the furniture and fixture line, I don't know if Gabrielle has that or Shannon.
So we waited last year, we didn't do a lot of replacements until I dove down into the basements. There wasn't, a lot of it was not that good, but we do need to start replacing some of the chairs and the desks in the building, but I didn't want to do it last year until I knew what we had.
Are they classrooms?
It is all classrooms.
So it's all, okay, so it's all classrooms.
No conference tables, no conference chairs at Leeds.
We're happy with what we have currently.
So can I follow up?
Yes.
So if we're replacing stuff, the furniture has failed, it's dangerous to sit on, is it?
Some of the seats are cracked and we
Is
have
it
to throw some of
cosmetic?
them out. They're not even. Chip has done the best that he can to try to like solder some of them together. He does a really nice job at trying to save what we have. But it's time to start. Some of them just, not just look awful, but they're at the end of life.
I would assume we're talking about, I mean, not to talk about the windows prematurely here, but like, we're gonna just do a few every year, it's kind of a start of a replacement program over years, or is this like a?
That's what I'd like to do. I mean, we kind of have the end of life stuff left. So our kindergarten classroom needed a few things added to it and then start like replacing chairs and stuff. We had a couple of requests for some like some boards and stuff, but like that, most of this is all chairs and desks stuff replacing that on a rotating schedule.
And most of it is it's a half-inch tubing, so if you, I mean, if it starts to bend, it comes to a point where it breaks, and it's a hazard with like sharp, breaking aluminum, basically. And once they bend out of place, it's not like you can kind of bracket them up from there. So we try to fix them as long as we can, but there's a point where there's no fixing. And all, the signage, it would be a similar sign like to Tripp Middle School. They'd be 3 feet, 2.5 feet by 2 feet, and it'd be on the face of the school right in the front. So Leeds Central is the only school that doesn't have signage. So
All the other schools have a sign that you can really see from the street or see when you drive up, and Leeds just doesn't.
We all know it's the school.
It's the only big building in town. So it's just like,
It's the middle of a cow pasture.
I do have, just, how much is it, curiosity? How much is it?
3,000.
Excuse me?
3,000.
Those cows will appreciate it.
Be nice to the cows.
3.
Again, how many bottle filling stations and how much, please?
At Leeds,
Yep.
we have one.
We have 2 models, we have one in the gym and one in the park, is that right?
Yeah, so the one we're adding is in the gym area that it's protruding out, so
So one being added
one being added, yes,
for 4 or 5?
for 4. Because the water is already, the hookup's there.
Will this be how many more before we're done adding bottle stations? Is this the last year? Or?
This is the last year.
And at this point, all the schools will have all the bottle stations that we feel they need?
Yes.
And just, I think this may or may not be clear, but just right now, instead of bottle stations, they actually have like bubbler, like, push button office bubblers, because we couldn't use the existing fixtures that were there because of the lead, like you had said, Carrie. So anything else here? Leeds all? I thought Coral was raising her hand, but she's not. Leeds Central School. Okay. Oh,
Ashley.
Ashley, yeah.
This is kind of related, but off budget. Is the water ever tested out of those bottle filters?
Yeah, we recently tested Turner Primary, so the test came back great. Dave Roberts does our testing, and
Yeah, those filters pull everything out.
What's the schedule for testing the water? Like
Quarterly, all schools are quarterly. Right now, Turner Primary is on monthly because of some of the challenges we've had.
Are they first draw tests or are they running tests?
First draw test, Joe, for the metals,
Yep.
lead, copper, first draw. The other ones, you run 4 to 5 minutes.
So the lead is first draw.
They make you do first draw or metals. That's a 6 overnight.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to Tripp Middle School, and if something pops up on the other schools, you can still ask, but we'll add Tripp Middle School to the mix now. Page 5, and a little bit of page 6. Tripp Middle School. Yes.
I just have I don't know if it's, I'm just gonna ask it. Leaving here tonight, when you go out and you go right, I don't know if it's from frost heaves or if it's like the pavement, like hitting the road. It is like, you lose your tire when you come out. I wasn't sure if that is getting fixed this year, or if it could possibly be in here. Jana, anybody who works here knows, if that is somewhere.
so as soon as the plants are open, as far as like asphalt, we're gonna get a ton of asphalt and
Fill that
some.
baby in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think a lot of that is also, it's close enough to the town where they help out a lot with us.
That's why I was wondering who.
would take ownership?
Yeah, so I'll usually talk to the town manager and we'll figure out a plan. But most of the parking lots, we try to go get a ton of asphalt when the plant opens, usually after frost season is done, and fill in holes, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Tripp Middle School, Peter?
You probably know this for the record, I've seen the town doing it, so they have some, just so you know.
Ah.
They're out spreading that stuff right now, because I hear it on my truck.
Was that cold patch or is
Yeah,
that
cold
real-
patch.
real-
Oh,
yeah,
you going
cold
the real
patch.
stuff? Oh, you're going the real, not cold
Yeah,
patch?
yeah.
You're not, oh,
That's a lot of bags.
I was gonna say. No, they have the dump trucks full.
Yeah.
Around with shovels. Anyways, custodian furniture and fixtures, what is it?
Middle school.
Middle school.
Do you
Yeah,
want to
sorry.
speak to that one?
Yes, please.
So if you guys remember 2 years ago, we added an additional science/social studies teacher to accommodate our growing numbers. And we had an existing classroom available, but it wasn't a science lab. We've been trying to make that work, but as our numbers continue to increase, we need to outfit a fourth science lab. And so those come with different science tables and equipment, including like an eye wash station and a small storage place for the science equipment. So that's the majority of that cost.
Thank you.
Yeah. Imagine adding a science lab is not cheap. I was actually trying to find that line item here. How much was that?
It's the last line on page 5.
Yeah, it's right here. Doesn't emphasize.
I thought that was low for what they.
Yeah, that's not too bad for what was just described, yeah.
About $4,000, a bit
Yeah.
under.
Anything else for the middle school?
No bottle filling stations there?
Middle schools don't drink.
It's just the little kids.
Just go to.
Just teasing you,
What,
Dave.
No, none this year, but I have a place for one.
where are the shades that are fireproof there?
So they're mostly in the two wings where the sun is shining. For the most part, that's where the teachers need to be able to pull the shades down. They're odd sizes, and the ones that we have been getting from a vendor, they're usually about between $500 and $1,000 a piece.
So these are just shades on outside windows to keep the sun from coming in for the most part?
Yes.
Why do they have to be fireproof? They should not have to be, I understand, but
Everything's fire retardant.
I understand fire
shades.
retardant, but there's
Yeah.
a lot, I don't know, I'm questioning how much we're spending on it. I guess,
We spend a lot of time repairing them, and we haven't really replaced the shades in a long time. They're used daily, depending on the sunlight, depending on what time the class is. So they're pulled up and down often. We're taking them to Gammon or Gamache and Lasada to repair, so we're spending a lot of money repairing them at this point.
This is all lumped into that last item, right, 54,300? And how much of that item is the shades? Did I miss that?
10,000.
10,000. And that is all of them, or is that a few of them?
No, if they're between $500 and $1,000, depending on the prices, you may get 10 out of that. Depending on the smaller sizes, you may get a few out of them. The windows on both wings are different sizes, so that's the thing about, they have to be custom.
Can we keep the price tags on the shades, please? So that students and teachers know that the shade costs $1,000?
Yeah.
Because that's ridiculous. And I know how quickly shades get pulled and ripped because a student is trying to be helpful and goes, and the thing flies and it spins and it rips, but that's a lot of money for a shade.
Yeah, great.
And we can't even get all of them. That might be a dozen.
I just, getting my mind, even though I've been around this a long time, so I understand that there is a real world and then there's the municipal educational world when it comes to pricing of stuff. So I'm really part of me has a, concern that there, I can't imagine there is not a cheaper option for a shade that won't catch on fire out there for a window. I have, whether it be, is it cheaper to treat the windows? Let's treat the windows. If the sun coming in is the issue, can we just treat the windows instead of, with a tint?
Part of it is also with the safety protocol, like if we were into like a lockout, those are exterior windows, so.
Yeah, but the tint you usually can't see, you can't see through the tints if you get the right tint. Basically, it's a window you see out of it. I'm
So you're
seeing
saying
it.
like a film?
Yeah, like
basically.
something that's more permanent. I'm just trying to think of option, that's a lot of money for something that is clearly going to get destroyed again here, or it sounds like it's a continuing thing. And
I just want to push back on a little bit. Like there is not like egregious wear and tear on the shades. Some of these shades have been in place, and I don't want to speak for you, but 20 years
absolutely.
without a replacement. So kids and staff are not going to road with the shades. I want to be clear with that. Like, they're necessary. We've been taking the ones that are broken, and as you know with shades, when you're pulling them down and then pulling them back up, like they don't always go up the way they're supposed to. And we've been replacing them or getting them repaired like one at a time. And every classroom in that building almost faces an outside wing and has 5 to 6 windows in it. And so like we have been trying to maintain the last fire inspection that we got is where a big piece of this around the material for the shades in windows that didn't have shades, we got dinged because we couldn't pull them if there was an emergency. And then windows that had something other than these shades were dinged. Like if teachers tried to do like a cloth shade or a curtain instead. And so this is in response to reports that we've gotten to stay in compliance with other policies.
Thanks for jumping in there, Jen. I was going to ask how long they had lasted. The 20 years is pretty good lifespan for a shade.
In 4 years that I've been there, there's been 2 that I've been made aware of that were damaged by a student, and both those times it wasn't, it was similar to what someone said, like a student trying to help.
So we shouldn't update policy to make that an immediate expulsion or anything? Correct. I don't know if,
there's not much you can do.
something you wanted to look into closer.
I'm taking that Dave has done his due diligence and got the 3 or 4 quotes that is required to replace them. The 3, I believe, is our policy for something of this price range. And so if that's the case, then I guess we're trying to move forward as long as we have to meet certain requirements.
That price was the best price that I found for the best product, in my opinion.
But did we get quotes from more than one place?
I had 2 quotes.
2.
Yeah. I did not.
Sometimes we're not able to.
I
get
know
three
sometimes we
quotes.
can't always get a third, but.
I did not get the 3rd. The second one was more expensive than the first. And that's the one we've been dealing with for many years.
Just like the power line and leads, so.
No, the leads. Oh, yeah, the 3-phase?
Yeah, the 3-phase line and leads.
That's a sole source issue, that's entirely different.
It's up now, by the way, the pole, it's up.
Should be fully paid. Is it gold?
All right, so we'll move on from middle school, let's add in the high school. Okay, pages 6, going on to page 7, Leavitt Area High School facilities. Yes, Bree.
This is at the bottom of page 6. Can you explain, please, the custodian staff travel that we've not had before and we have now? It's not much, but I'm just curious, when do they have to travel?
No, I can't.
Was it budgeted under before somewhere else and they?
Miscellaneous travel to pick up items as approved.
So this is like mileage for someone to drive somewhere or something?
That would be, what that would be, yes.
Yeah.
That's where that would be budgeted for.
Would they then be using their own vehicle, and that's why we're reimbursing them?
We certainly wouldn't be reimbursing if they were using district, yes.
Well, that's what I'm asking, like, this is because they're using their own vehicle, not school.
Do we have that?
The only thing I'm thinking that it potentially might have been in with mail delivery at one point, or central office,
Okay.
because the custodian used to deliver the mail. That's my,
Right, but that, we've circumvented
Yep.
that issue any longer. So maybe that's something that we need to remove.
Saving $150 for you. There you go.
yeah.
Save it, you guys.
$1 at a time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Crystal.
First line on page 7 for the auto scrubber walk behind floor scrubbers, are those are something new?
Yes.
And how many of them?
One.
Is that a replacement, Dave?
That is a replacement, yes.
Okay.
Just remind the board that the auto scrubber was purchased to replace a human, so
Thank you.
you all.
Or human.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Real quick back on middle school.
Yeah.
I assume the carpet in the hallway is, since it's a hallway, is going to tile?
Yes.
Correct, just want to clear. And just, I realize, when you read it occasionally, it says, all of these say the school custodian, furniture, and fixtures. It just sounds weird to have the custodian, because the first thought is just like, if you're not really paying attention, is this just like their little office or back room or something? They're getting all the, you know, it almost just like school, you know?
So
like-
I don't disagree with you, but
That's just,
regardless of where the furniture is going, it's considered a custodial line, a maintenance line.
so it's, that's just.
I know that I've had a lot of conversations with all the
Yeah.
principals.
When I was a principal, I was annoyed that it was in the maintenance budget and I couldn't see it. Like, it's just annoying, but the state makes you put it there.
And
But it
Dave
also has
to
that
approve it.
word, you know,
I
because
know.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
did
the
we
state.
solve our, does this solve our wood, we had a wood chip issue this year with the facility dealing with, seems
Yeah.
like, so there's,
So the same trailer is still delivering. So the same contractor is still delivering materials.
so
It's-
we don't have to make it, this budget isn't making any changes.
No.
We were able to address that.
Not yet.
We're gonna
When
buy
I
his
spoke
trailer.
with him, he said that he would be willing to extend the same price, but I don't know where that's going to leave us for next year. We're still hopeful because the product is superior,
Very good.
but, you know, we don't know yet.
Go ahead, Reed.
I have multiple, just putting that up there.
Okay.
So my first one is, under the custodian furniture, it just is one bookcase, singular,
What,
So
where are you looking?
at the LAHS.
57330.
Thank you. I didn't know what school though.
that's probably the one that was damaged from water. One of the roof drains let go and it leaked in an office area.
Okay, so it is just
Yeah.
one.
It's a bookcase in my office, 3. It's destroyed and falling apart.
Oh, with all those book challenge books that you read,
That's correct.
to make sure that all the kids get a recommendation from you?
It's falling apart.
Yeah, good. And then classroom stools, is the majority of that then?
The classroom stools is the second half of a replacement in one of the art rooms. We purchased half of that set this year. You'll notice that the current adopted is 0. This was one of those lines that was inadvertently zeroed out. And we didn't know that until after we ordered half the stools. So we ordered half the stools, and this is the other half of the stools for the art room.
Thank you. Next, I wanted to ask about the lockers in the athletic areas, like in the locker rooms, and like how often are they like really being used?
They are used a lot, and they are significantly broken. And I think the ones that are broken are probably in the 1985 range. They've lasted a long time, but they've reached end of life.
And how much will that cost?
10,000.
And that's a portion of the lockers, that's not
Yeah.
all of the lockers.
And then I was curious where the ceiling tiles are going to soundproof, is that?
So the ceiling tiles are to replace the ones that have water damage.
Okay.
And that's from whether it's the Victala couplings, leaking heating pipes, or sprinkler systems. It's easier to buy them in a bulk.
So it will just be various ceiling tiles throughout the school?
Yeah, we're replacing those. The ones that we're replacing, by law, we have to have ceiling tiles, and those are the same ones.
How much is that?
4,000?
Is that your whole string of questioning there, Bree, or did you have more?
I thought that, to just clarify, we had window repairs, but it still says window replacement.
That's an error on my part.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
It has been changed in the actual numbers, but I did not update the wording. I apologize.
Thank you, that's all.
Anyone else here? Might as well open up some more here. Moving on to page 8, which is district-wide. And a little bit on to page 9. District-wide facilities. Go ahead, Peter.
We've never spent it before. Explain the maintenance uniforms.
So the uniforms are safety gear, chaps for cutting trees, protective eyewear, protective earwear, rain gear.
So we just haven't ever been having our own, never had it? I'm just curious because it's previous 2 years we've spent nothing on it. Just, is it somewhere else or?
No, we haven't had it. Like, our guys have not had ear protection, and that's one thing we're trying to work on is, as far as like safety-wise, and doing our own stuff, chaps-wise, cutting trees, branches, limbing, just eye protection as far as weed whacking or doing anything. We had a battery acid issue this year, where a maintenance guy was taking out a battery and got acid in his eye. So it's to protect our guys.
No, I trust me, I spend plenty on. That is fair amount though, 4,400. Is that, I can't remember, how many people in the crew?
So there's 5, and then I was looking at custodians as well. Like, some of the tasks they do are maintenance as well.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else?
What pages are we only allowed to speak on?
Oh, I was just about, I mean, we're pretty much right through to page 9 right now. We're going to add in the central office.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
On 9. Can you, Gabby, explain the ML library program? I don't know what that stands for. Under maintenance disposal.
What is it?
The ML library program.
Oh, ML, yes. So ML, the library program is schedules. So it's ML schedules, so it gives us a district calendar. And the district calendar is for facility use, and also we coordinate, all of our maintenance needs with it. We have a work order program, we have tech requests with that. So it's a district-wide program, which for facility use, you can tie in maintenance orders to set up for events like this, tear downs as far as how long it takes, and more so the coordinating of the events that happen after, like basketball games, taking bleachers down, how many trash cans you need out. So it's part of, when you fill out a request form, you're going to fill out that information.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Didn't
you're
know it
welcome.
was ever called that.
Bree, to your point, so that's actually like a dues and fees line. It's just labeled maintenance disposal fees because that's, I think, predominantly what has been charged there. I'm going to look into relabeling that, dues and fees, so that it's a little bit more clear.
Anyone else here through page 9, which is district-wide and central office? Peter?
Can can I get a breakdown on the office maintenance furniture? 3,000, so we're spending another $3,500 this year. We spent 3,000. Are we replacing a lot of the furniture, or do we?
What, can you say what page
Yeah,
you're
which
on?
number?
Oh, I'm sorry, 9, my apologies.
Page 9.
57,330, central office, maintenance, basically desks and furniture.
So we have several chairs that need replacement in central office that are damaged to some extent. It won't stay up or down. We also need a new desk for the special ed administrative assistant. The desk that's there has been there for about 20-ish years.
It's patched together.
It's patched together. It's not particularly safe in the way that it's patched together, so we think that it's probably good practice to replace it.
So just out of curiosity, how many chairs in a desk, the desk is 500, I'm guessing?
Be more than that.
So we budgeted 2,000 for the desk, which is actually lower than a lot of the desks that we had purchased previously, and then 5 chairs to make sure that they're ergonomically correct and efficient in all of the different contours.
The reason I'm asking this, and I want to possibly even go back to the green chairs and, that aren't school, it falls back to a little bit of the t-shirt thing. If we're talking about, I can't remember how much it was now, but a couple $1,000 for chairs to make the conference area look better, and they're still usable. We're talking about another $3,000 in chairs at central office. Some of, I'm sure some do need to be replaced. I do have a question where we're buying these chairs at this price. We go to Office Max, we can find stuff a lot cheaper that is, I sit in all day long, and I have 3 herniated discs in my lower back, and I managed to get by. So I'm really curious what we're getting and where we're buying these chairs from that we're buying. If we're not buying 10 chairs at a couple $1,000 or $3,000, where are we getting them? But that being said, and to talk, I'm curious on, yet we're cutting people other places. So I'm really curious where the student desks and everything I understand. Facilities, a lot of facility stuff is actually falling apart, and I understand. But I really have a little bit of a problem with us upgrading a conference room that is operational and upgrading furniture at central office when we're making pretty significant cuts and potentially going to have to make even more significant cuts in the future. So that's, I've on those two in particular, and I do have a question on refinishing the wooden floors at central office. They're pretty, yes, they're wooden floors. They could definitely use a refinishing, but they're perfectly fine and accurate. I don't know if I don't think they're causing anything structural. They're not getting any,
So I can speak partially to the furniture.
Yeah.
Central office is neglected overall.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it needs to be a priority because it's not in direct relation to servicing the students. But we still have a lot of needs, a lot of staff needs. We need to make sure that we're mindful of ergonomic needs and that we are fulfilling all of those items. Also maintaining safety. We don't want to put our staff in unsafe furniture so that we now have new workers' compensation issues. So I think that we're trying to be mindful of that and phase in some replacement of the furniture that is damaged.
Not to tedious, I have a question on the $2,000 desk. What, is it like a big metal desk? Because I helped
It would have a standing feature as well.
Yeah, so I helped to refurnish our office at my prior workplace. We had about 9 desks, and they were corner desks, and we had stand rise retrofitted to them, and we replaced the seats for $2,000.
I didn't price it out myself. I don't know if Dave or Rebecca had looked into the furniture itself. I was given numbers based on what we were looking at and what we were looking to replace and the space limitations, and then what was recommended to be safe for the equipment that we have and also fulfill the needs of the staff so that they could stand. I know that I needed a slightly higher standing desk because of my height.
Yeah, when Gabby joined, we bought, I mean, what was in her office was unacceptable. I mean,
I would have to then put a standing desk on top of the standing
Right.
desk to make it
so we
a height
spent some money.
for me.
But, I mean, we'll go back and look at what we priced out
But just, where do we purchase? You know, do
at
we,
various places. I think sometimes ordering from an Office Max or something, if it's not high enough quality, we're gonna be replacing it again in the next 10, like, you know what I mean? Like,
That
so
was-
it's just a matter of, do we wanna get something that's not gonna last very long and end up needing to replace again? Or are we investing because we're not gonna spend it again for another 20 to 25 years? So I think that's some of the decision-making that goes into place.
I don't necessarily have a good sense of what the price tags are for commercial grade desk around either, but I would definitely encourage us not to buy things that are going to break quickly, but I think durability is definitely a factor, so we're not replacing, but again, I don't have a good sense of what that cost is, but I hope we don't, just because of pressure on this, like, get
No.
something too cheap, you know?
and just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's poor quality. And just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's great quality.
Yeah. Maybe I
And
used the
yet-
wrong
and
word, but.
I'm sorry, but I think this is you know, if you, first of all, if you're ordering it from the catalogs that you're getting in the mail,
No, we're not.
you know you're getting, because, you know, I see those same catalogs come to my operation, and I look at them, and I know I can shop it and get it so much cheaper
Sure.
for the same friggin' item. So I just have a real concern that, specifically those two items, the chairs in the green, and I have a problem telling, you know, it's having significant cuts other places, and yet I don't know, I'm not ready to make the motion to cut them or reduce them, but I'm really concerned about it. What is the situation with the floor?
So the hardwood floors, as far as like, there's really no finish left on it. So we have adult ed kids coming in, especially during the winter months, so I would be more concerned about having to replace the floor because the water is getting in between the floor itself. So I just want to do the preventative maintenance, which would be sand the floors down and put a coated finish on it.
How much is that, do you know?
10,000.
Just quite a bit of hardwood floors.
Yeah, it's nationwide up there on that first
It's
floor.
the first floor, the basement doesn't have it.
Just some cement.
Can I
Tile.
jump back to the disposal services and fees? So the roll-off dumpsters, that's just standard waste from it's not construction debris or anything like that?
So we
Or is it
have,
everything?
it's everything at each school, basically. So at each school, there's usually a cardboard dumpster and a regular dumpster as far as regular trash that the custodians throw away. We do get a metal dumpster once a year in the summertime to throw some of the metal stuff, like desks that are bent and we can't fix. And then we try to, you know, clean out construction stuff at the same time. Stuff we're pulling out and we can't repair that's wood, we normally get a construction dumpster for that.
And this will be, we're hopeful that maybe we'll be able to partner with the towns
Yeah.
but who knows?
It was thrown out, we'll follow up on that, who knows?
Thanks.
So I know the fees have gone up for waste, like a few other things.
I'm just wondering, I see like the crosswalk flashing sign here, and then the TPS, school zone flashing signs as well. I just don't know anything about how this all works, so the road is owned by the town. And it's a crosswalk that was put in by the town, but it's our job to maintain a crosswalk sign. As a school, that doesn't fall to the town budget.
Good question.
Yeah.
I guess we'll need to look into that.
Yes, but I think I'm very concerned about not having flashing lights at that crosswalk.
No, I understand, but I just didn't know if we had checked, because I
So-
feel like this should be a town-maintained road. It's a public road. And I'm not sure why we're set with maintaining the lights, putting them up.
Is that a state or town?
That's a state road.
That's a state
Yeah, this is a
maintained road.
debate I've had. When I first got here, I had lots of conversations with Kurt about who was gonna paint the crosswalk.
Okay.
And we were able to resolve that it wasn't gonna be Dave's custodians in the middle of the road painting the crosswalk. So now the town is painting the crosswalk, but those are pretty consistent conversations about whose responsibility it is.
So it's a state road, so this.
Well, is it a town road maintained by the state?
Yeah.
Or is it a state road?
This is why we need to buy it. Like, we will just not have, like, I can see
I think
this.
student safety is first, obviously, but I think it's important to note that, like, this is something that we are faced with in our school budget to put in to increase our numbers because the town is not doing it.
So I did not ask
So
the town.
school budget
Let me be
does.
clear, I did not ask the town to
Or the
install
state.
these.
Yeah, so I think it might be good to ask. I'm not saying it should be cut, but, or anything, like, I think it's very important. But I think asking, like.
I will ask.
Okay.
Kyle?
On that note, is it something that we could actually install and then give to the state to maintain for the, you know, like it's in your right of way, here you go. I don't know.
Anyone else?
Funded at 40%.
Well, I have.
All right, we might as well open this up to our very last page here, which is the wastewater treatment plant.
We had our kickoff meeting today.
Good,
I heard.
very good.
Just saying. There were actual contractors
In the
talking
conference
about
room.
the
How
wastewater
many
treatment
contractors
plant.
showed up?
4.
What's that?
4? That's very good. All
Plus
right.
2 engineers.
So all of warrant article number 9, we're now opening up to the very last page, 10 of 10, which is the sewer treatment plant.
Does they cut it?
Yeah, just kind of, it is down by 33%, but, yeah.
Put a pipe in and cut it.
Why is it then 33%?
We cut a position.
The person with the duct tape roll? Was that what it is?
All right. Anyone else, warrant article 9? Seeing none, thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Like you did.
We'll move on to warrant article number 10, which is debt service, which I imagine would be you, Gabby.
Yes, so warrant article 10, this warrant relates solely to the expense that was the Green and Trip renovations and additions and Leeds and Turner parking improvements bond, which started in 2004. The decrease reflects this loan being paid off. It's $0.
Very good.
How come not all debt is shown?
It's only for construction, for school construction. Other debt is absorbed by the different warrant articles that it's associated with.
Any other questions about this loan? Warrant article number 10. All right, we'll move on to warrant article number 11, which is other expenditures. This also looks like you, Gabby.
So warrant article 11 is the support for the district's food service program and adult education program. As you all know, the food service program is not seeking any funding. It's presently funded 100% by federal and state sources. The adult education program is requesting $63,880. This is the same amount as was fiscal year 25 and 24 before that.
Sure. Any questions about warrant article 11? Peter?
Something in my brain is telling me, I thought we were talking originally about an increase.
Yep.
And then it came back as a decrease of about half of their increase.
Yep.
And now it's no increase?
Nope.
Okay.
So there's 2 different sources that you see in the budget process for adult education.
Okay.
This particular amount is seen within the general fund budget, and that is the money that's associated with the 16 to 20-year-olds that need to go to adult education because they didn't fulfill regular. And
That
then,
comes through us through EPS,
yes,
right, isn't that?
no.
No, okay, just kidding, never mind.
Then, if you go back to your revenue sheet,
Okay.
down at the bottom, after all the calculations, are you going there or not?
I am.
Okay, great. Just circle, go around. That 201,460 right there, that used to be 176,460.
So that's where that increase.
That's where that increase is.
Okay.
So the first time around, we increased it 50.
No,
Then we were
increased
like,
it
no,
25.
wait, let's not do that.
So this is a $25,000 increase from last year.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Good question, because I would have asked the same thing.
Now, to emphasize what you just were saying, do we get any money for adult ed from the
Yes,
state?
we do.
I didn't know if they.
If you would like to turn to the very front, color-coded, fun little thing that Carrie puts together on page,
The EPS,
Yeah,
ED279.
Yeah.
I think it's page 4, page 4. Or 5.
Number 4 in B, basic
No,
count.
Oh, wrong one.
Yeah.
No, there's an adult
On
education.
page,
It's the second page.
it's the second page, in section B, number 4.
Oh, yes, there you go. Second page, B, number 4, adult education courses, $591,423.
And that's,
90 cents.
I'm sorry, yes, you are absolutely right, and 90 cents.
Just got to train to stop saying that, just triggered it.
adult education. Okay, so they come at the same rate as high school kid.
I believe so.
So in my first year, and this is something that Brian can talk about too, when they counted the number of courses they were offering and that kind of thing, we count, so this is an increased number because the count in that initial wasn't the way other adult ed departments were counting.
You count by course hour per student.
Right.
First year I was here, I counted course hour period. That's not the right formula, it's course hour per student. So last year we had approximately, I think it was 640 course hours.
Right. So we were able to increase that subsidy after by correcting the count. So it has gone up because the data is accurate.
Okay.
Which is the ED279 is all about data. So if you give them dirty data, you get your money gets messed up.
Dirty
So we
money.
fixed it.
You get dirty money.
You get dirty money. You get less money.
We can wash it.
You just print more, it's
Ew,
fine.
we're not washing money.
Anyone else about warrant article number 11?
Brian, if you want to head over here.
So seeing none, as Carrie just alluded, we'll move on
Oh,
to the.
food service is going first. Sorry.
Well-
Sorry, Dave. Sorry. Oh,
Well,
no.
it's interesting, we don't have Article 14 in my, I don't have it in my book.
We jump right to 15.
So the tabs are in a different order, so we're just gonna, Dave Roberts is here, go to food service.
Okay, all
And
right.
then we'll go
I don't
back
mind,
to
I
the.
can
And then
swap
we'll go
around.
back.
Sorry about that, I don't mean to be out of order.
No,
here.
No worries.
not you.
No, it's not you, it's not you.
Oh, okay.
But again, there's no money we are not asking for any money for food service, so this is his budget that is self-sufficient.
Sure. Welcome, Dave.
Hi.
Hi.
So I was going to speak to these bullet points just very briefly. The first one, as we've talked about in the past, our expenses don't hit the general fund. We raise our own revenues. As you know, pre-pandemic, we collected money from parents and we had state and federal reimbursements. That's changed. The state of Maine has decided that they're going to pick up the balance. Now what that really means is we still qualify families that are on TANF food stamps and Maine Care. They receive their reimbursements through federal monies. So the state of Maine picks up the balance. It's about 50-50 right now. So as far as we know, that's going to continue like that. The new budget does have coverage. The state budget has coverage for these meals. There is concern that as the federal budgets possibly tighten up and the federal share shrinks, the state of Maine may have to reevaluate that in the long-term viability of that program. But right now, it stays the way it is. You might have seen on the news, the USDA did pull some funding for local food purchasing. For our district, that meant about $5,000 to $7,000 annually. We can still buy local foods, but we're not going to get reimbursed, as we did in the past, for a portion of those purchases. So as you look line...
Can I just stop?
Sure, Joe, go ahead.
So you said we're not going to get that funding.
Right.
So how are we going to buy local food?
Well, we can still buy food with our food budget.
Okay.
Local food. But
Gotcha.
what happened is there was two pots of money available to us to incentivize local purchasing.
Yeah.
The state program gives us $1 for each $3 we
Gotcha.
spend. We do a monthly claim on that, and that's like $5,000 a year. The federal monies were a little bit higher, about $7,000 a year, and that was 100% reimbursement.
But it's
So-
going to cut back on our local
Right,
purchase.
so they're not going to incentivize local purchasing, we can still do it, but,
Okay.
so it hits us a little bit, but it's not a big impact for us. So you're going to see some line-by-line increases. Again, those are reflective of our actual expenses. As you know, we're at all-time high participation rates, 60% plus for breakfast and 80% plus for lunch. So any increases in food, of course, relates to food cost, prices going up, and serving higher numbers of kids. Let's see, we have, let me look at the second point here. So we have increases in benefits. We have more people eligible for benefits now, so we're paying more on that line. Increased food costs, we talked about that a little bit. You're going to see some increased costs in equipment. We're now purchasing equipment for cafeterias. Last year we did Leeds and the middle school. And this year is going to be Turner Primary, Turner Elementary, and Levitt. So we'll make those purchases over the summer and then the fiscal year. We are proposing to bring on a half-time admin assistant. Most directors in this area have more than one person in the office doing things. I tend to do things myself, but it's time to pick up a half-time assistant to help with some of the admin stuff. Any questions about the bullet points or the line-by-line budget?
Any chance you could fit in a few more conference room chairs or window shades or?
We would love to do that. Unfortunately, the funding is very clear on
We
what
tried
we
to get a
can and
generator
Yeah.
cannot
out of
spend it
them.
for. Yeah,
Nothing.
spend it on.
Yeah, and historically, we haven't bought cafeteria furniture either, but now that we have monies available, we're looking for ways to.
Now, the cafeteria furniture can be very comfortable and roll it into the green conference room.
Yeah, we've tried various ways to spend some monies, but the federal government's really funny about that.
You don't spend it, just simply check it.
Yeah, we can do it, you just can't get caught. Anthony? I'm sorry.
No,
Did you
it's
do your
great.
job to follow?
Go right ahead, go right ahead.
So I just want to be very clear, because I think there are some townsfolk who are not clear, and if they ask me, I want to be very sure that I'm giving them as accurate an answer as I can. So we talk about the rising food costs.
Yes,
And then you also talk about how the student meal costs are going to be 100% covered.
correct.
So the rising food costs will not be affecting the townsfolk?
Not at all, because the rising food costs, the reimbursement rates rise every year as well. So the federal government has a formula that keeps us up with inflation on the reimbursement rates. And we have enough volume, business volume, so that we're covering our expenses with our revenues.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, there's no impact to the general fund. Thanks, good question. Yeah, it is misleading, because when you look at the summary, it talks about a percentage increase, but it doesn't hit the general fund, so.
How much more of that money before, because we always had concern that they're going to take it away from us at some point.
Mhm.
How much have we have left in that pot right now? And are we getting more concerned that they might take it?
You mean what's left over, and there's a limit to how much you can keep for how long?
Yeah, and I thought we were over that amount and
We
trying
are.
to figure out how to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a fine balance too, Peter, because on the one hand, they want us to spend down at a certain level, but on the other hand, they're saying you might lose funding. So we're in a good position right now, and we have, they evaluate that every year and give us a new target balance to aim for.
Okay, so we're not in a place where they could come in and say, we want some of that back.
No.
No, Dave consistently puts together a letter, and Carrie and I work with him to ensure that it's meeting all the points that they're looking for to what the spend down plan is. But at the same time, we're very cognizant of not just frivolously spending money because we're supposed to spend it down. We've increased training, we've increased uniforms for his staff because they're very upfront and with the students and working with food regularly and getting stuff on themselves all
Quality
the
of
time, right?
food, the
Yeah.
amount of
Quality of
cooking,
food,
fresh.
local
Yeah.
food. That's another reason why we want a part-time administrative assistant to assist Dave. We have the funding available, and to have that redundancy in his department is helpful as well.
We've replaced equipment right across the board. If you walk through our kitchens, I invite you to do so. Virtually all of our equipment is less than 5 years old now. We've been progressively upgrading everything.
So if we should lose it quickly, like at least we've been left in a good starting place if we don't have that funding.
Thank you.
Any more questions on food service? It's easy when you don't have to pay for it, I guess. Oh, Anthony, go ahead.
Yes,
Let's see, we've got page 1, TPS FS Furniture. That's a little over 18 grand. That's cafeteria tables and chairs.
Yes.
Why are those being, why are these coming on board?
A lot of those tables are broken, the chairs are outdated. Maybe Kim can speak to it a little bit, but I think we're buying 23 tables and 100 or so chairs.
They're all the original, I
They're
think.
all original.
They're original.
Yeah, yeah, Teresa, I mean,
Did this school open in 92? 93?
90,
yeah.
wait,
so
no,
that's-
92.
92.
So they're 30 years plus.
Right. So I'm just kind of following that line through the various schools. It all
Yep.
adds up to it's like $94,000.
Yes.
For new
Yeah.
chairs. and
Especially the high
all
school, yeah, they're not
Any
inexpensive.
way to space that out over a series of years? I understand that some of these are broken, but $94,000 all at once.
That was an approved part of our spend down plan that we submitted with the state. So we've let them know that these monies are going to be expended for this purpose.
Yeah, what would be the benefit of not doing it, Anthony? Or just,
Do 20 grand one year, 20 grand the next year, space it out the way that we're doing the window repairs so that it's not a big hit all at once.
I'm sorry, but
No, go ahead.
do you understand? Right now, from COVID or something like that, we have a significant amount of money that we either gotta kind of spend down or give back to the state.
I understand. Okay, fine.
It's not COVID though, it's because the state changed, well,
Their funding
post-COVID,
formula.
the state changed it so that all lunch is now free.
Yeah,
Yes.
so at some point,
Yes.
we're trying to get ahead, like Carrie was saying very appropriately, and I'm very happy about, is that if all of a sudden we do get tight, everything is up new and fresh and so
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and there are really, honestly, when we've replaced all of the production equipment, there's very few ways that are approved that we can spend this money as well. So this is one way that's approved.
That sounds great. Thanks.
And it fulfills the needs of the schools, therefore not passing it on to the towns because these chairs and tables need to be replaced.
Otherwise, this would hit the general fund if there's money
Yeah,
available.
right. I did not realize that, so thank you.
and I started maybe moving too quickly here. We did not go line by line through this, but we can if folks want to. And I'm curious if folks want to go page by page to the food service budget. But if you want to go first.
Peter kind of alluded to it, but I think that Anthony was, and I forget about it sometimes too, that pot of money that we have in the reserve account, what it was, just refresh our memory, what it was from, and, I mean, it's a significant amount of money, it's almost, it's almost $1 million.
So the reserve account has nothing to do with that. So
Okay, well,
his
yeah, but it's-
reimbursement comes in, it builds up, and then we need to build a plan to get through the state to have them approve how we're gonna spend it. So they'll notify us, say, hey, you're holding on to too much money, what's the plan? We'll sit together, write out a plan. Dave writes it out, we talk through it, and then we give them that plan.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
So the
everyone's
reserve
clear on that,
account is
'cause
what's
it
left
does look
over at
like-
the end.
It looks like you're spending 50 grand on chairs at the high school, but you're required to
Spending
spend it, in a sense.
Yep.
I actually feel bad for Dave.
You do? Why?
It says every admin meeting, all the rest of them look at it and go, why?
Oh, well, I mean, we actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way to use a generator, because a generator is in the list of
Yeah.
allowable costs. But
Yeah.
literally, the only generator we could get is the one that operates the ovens and like just the equipment in the cafeteria, in the kitchen, and we would have had to rewire.
And to be clear, to rewire, to make that happen, costs more than the whole school generator
Yeah.
Yeah.
that we have applied for a grant for.
We spent a lot of time on the phone with the guys from the state.
Yeah, I
trying
was
to
like,
work
no,
this
Dave,
one
say it
around.
this way, that'll make it, like, we were trying to find different ways to say it, and it just, we tried really
We
hard.
literally had him on speakerphone in some of
Yeah,
our
and
meetings.
like, well, we
Well,
need
what about
water,
this?
like, I thought we could hook up well,
We need
you can't
emergency
run the
lighting.
kitchen without water, and it, literally, we tried really hard, and they just were having none of it. The guy knew that we were trying to work him over, and he was like, no.
Yeah.
So-
We tried.
So we don't know why they have generator on the list of allowable expenses, it's really frustrating.
I'm sure there's a school out there that has generator just
Just
for
for
their
the
kitchen.
kitchen?
Yeah, if the kitchen was wired exclusively,
Yeah,
but
Very
that's not how they wire buildings,
no,
evidently.
it's ridiculous.
So, there are 4 pages to this. We will take a second here just to make sure everyone's had a chance to look at all 4 pages and each school's food service budget before moving on. I apologize if I was moving too quickly on you guys earlier, sorry.
Yeah, the biggest increases are on the benefit lines, because like we said, we've had more people accessing benefits. We changed the eligibility formula a little bit, so more folks have.
And that was done during negotiations, and part of what we were concerned about was recruitment and retainment, because you were struggling to keep people staffed. Where do you
Post-pandemic
stand now?
was hard, yeah. It took us about 2.5 years to get repopulated in our department.
Where do you stand for staffing now?
We're in great shape right now, in really good shape now, yeah. With the increases in the hourly salaries and the expanded benefit eligibility, we're in a really good position right now.
I wonder, has there been any talk, I mean, any rumor at the state level of cutting back on?
I've heard cutting back, but not,
Savings or something else.
Oh,
I think what I'm hearing, a lot of it's predicated on what happens at the federal level.
yeah.
Because if the states are all of a sudden faced with supporting a bigger portion of that pie, it might necessitate some serious conversations, but right now, we haven't heard anything yet.
Well, because I think, like, and I don't know the statistics on this, but Maine is, like, all states aren't doing this. Maine is one of, I don't know how many states.
Yeah, there's probably about 6, maybe 8 now.
I'd say
yeah.
8, no, I was gonna say
Is it
higher than
closer
that.
than
I
that?
feel like it's 8, I feel like I've heard, it's a good question. It's
But-
not, we're not alone.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Some states are partially doing illegal fund breakfast
Sure.
versus lunch. So. I think it's part of an overall trend to support parents and families
Sure,
in our culture, really. So I think it's a good thing.
yeah. Anyone else? Food service.
8 are definitely, and then many other states are currently planning or drafting.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Dave.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna go backwards, and it doesn't say warrant article, it just says Addlehead.
No, that has a
No,
warrant.
it
No,
says
but in the
16
book.
on mine.
Oh, it
What-
does.
But it says 18 on the agenda. Is it 18 or 16?
18 was my mistake, 16
Okay,
is correct.
16 is correct, all right. So warrant article 16, which is adult education.
Yeah.
Here comes Mr. Brito.
Thank you very much.
No, thanks for coming.
So, as you can see, the numbers for adult education increased pretty dramatically since the pandemic. We came out of the pandemic with an average of 40 academic students. As of the current 279 report, we're averaging about 69 academic students, which has increased the course hours by about 265 hours. That was at the end of 2004. I think the current number is a little bit higher than that. What that means is that we have incurred significant additional instructional costs. On the next slide, you'll see that this new population is also quite younger. When I came to adult education in 2012, between 2012 and 2016, I believe we had 2 16-year-old students. Right now, I believe I have 10 16-year-old students. In fact, 16 is probably the new norm. And that creates additional difficulties or challenges in the program because they come to the program with fewer transfer credits. So it means that we're teaching classes that they used to bring with them. For example, just today, I'm trying to figure out how to get students PE. For almost 10 years, we didn't have to offer a PE class. And now, because they come so much younger, we have to figure out how to do health and wellness, which is one of the requirements for graduation. We've had to beef up our science programs because they don't have those classes when they come to us. So that creates additional costs in the area of supplies and instructional materials, software. We also have had to invest more vigorously in courseware because I don't have the budget to have a teacher in every possible area. So where we don't have a certified teacher, then we have to use courseware. So that's an additional cost. Changes in federal funding have left many of the programs in this area scrambling to cover the cost of programs that were previously covered by the federal government. In this fiscal year, our program lost $30,000 in a federal literacy grant. Because literacy is a mandated duty of adult education. That means that we have to turn around and figure out how to cover that from local funds, which we've done. And then finally, most of the technology in the program is approaching 10 years old. Wally has advised us that most of it cannot be updated to protect our network, and so we have to begin to acquire new technology. So we're replacing aging hardware. And finally, while our enrichment program has had its most successful year in terms of overall enrollment this year, in fact, we're up about 200 residents at this point in the year, and we're still not done. There have been increased costs in printing and postage for our booklet, and the course registration program that we've used as long as I've been involved has increased quite significantly enough that adult education all over Maine is looking for cheaper ways to manage the course enrollment process, but these costs are all up pretty significantly. That said, in that period, the subsidy on the 279 report has increased more than $200,000 to the district, while our budget has remained flat since 2018.
All right. Well, let's dive into the line-by-line budget. Page 1 is focused on adult ed administration. Are there any questions around that?
If I could say,
Yeah,
here's
go
where
ahead.
you can see the difference in cost in both printing and postage. We mail out the book to, I believe, 17,000 homes.
You say 17,000?
Yes, sir.
That's a lot. Maybe I'm just jaded. Leeds only has 2,000, so I'm thinking that's a lot of homes. So yeah.
It has to be more than the district, though.
Yeah.
There's gonna be more than.
I believe it's mailed regionally, so we do have a footprint that we mail to, and we're actually hoping to expand that footprint, not by mail, but by distribution.
Go ahead, Dan.
This really isn't budgetary, this is more a question. Does there become a conflict at some point?
Not really, because
You know what I mean by a conflict?
I do,
like
right.
Other school
We don't-
districts going, hey, get out of our district.
We don't, and traditionally, people haven't crossed the lines, but realistically, it's not like we're teaching the same class as Lewiston on the same night, and vice versa, right? I have no problem with Lewiston putting a booklet in Turner because there's not a competition between classes. We might have we have one of our most popular classes is the worm composting class. We might have worm composting class. Lewiston might have it a month later. It's, we're not going to get the same students, and we don't see any decline overall. We have been advertising in Lewiston for about 2 years, and we haven't seen we don't see students saying, oh, we're coming to you rather than going to Lewiston, or vice versa. So we're going to push out a little bit.
Great.
I noticed that there's a decrease of $2,300 plus for the admin assistant salary, but there's an increase of $8,000 for their benefits.
So it's a shift in benefit election. for
Okay.
employees.
Yeah.
And then a shift in where the hours are charged. So the administrative assistant hours are charged over a multitude of different lines. And then also there's a reduction.
I was gonna say there was a
Right.
reduction.
We
in hours.
reduced some hours, we do have several lines, so the administrative assistants both also receive some grant. We have one who does registration and all academic work, the other one who manages more enrichment. And we do have some grant funds that we also pay them out of because they also do some advising functions. And so I put them in the advising lines of the grant funds.
Okay. But both positions are shown collectively in this line?
They both take a portion, actually 3 people. So Kelly Cabral, who is our marketing person, has a portion of the clerical line. So does Andrea and Tedesco and Tricia Sawyer. So all 3 take a portion of the clerical line, and they're also paid out of other areas of our funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Kyle?
I wanted to go back to the postage. Obviously, it's a significant amount of money. What is it? What's it? It's just regular flyers or something?
It's the catalog that you should receive 3 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just more of like an educational thing of what the district's doing.
It has all of the courses that we offer through enrichment. So that would be the Zumba classes, the piloxing classes, worm composting. We have a bee course.
Summer
piano
athletic
courses.
programs.
Yeah, all of the summer camps are in the catalog.
I know I've seen it. I just
Yeah.
going
And it
through
averages about, the brochure averages between 10 and 12 pages. So in terms of mailing, it's an expensive, more expensive item.
Yeah. I just wondered, is it for, if the adults that we're getting, they're younger, it makes more sense to try to go with a media type advertisement or?
So one of the things that we'd like to do in the coming year is do some surveying to see how the book is received. But anecdotally, we ask people when they register how they found out about the class, and overwhelmingly, it's from our booklet. We do have an online presence that you can look up adult education and our district, and you'll see the catalog online. Turner has an older population, and so they are not as web-friendly as they might be in a place like Portland, but even Portland relies pretty heavily on their brochure. So I doubt the evidence is going to show our brochure is not successful. We're looking for ways that we can make it more successful.
Peter?
I just, on the postage, it looked like, I'm guessing, was that maybe a mistake last year? Or do we, because if you look, because first I saw the big increase when why is postage up, but then 2 years ago, it's about the same amount. And
So-
$750 seems pretty low, so I'm curious if there was just a,
I think what happened is postage, because the company that prints our book also mails it out, and so the printing and the postage were sort of rolled together. And so we've unrolled them so that we can actually keep a better handle on what the costs are.
We might as well add.
So that would be the reduction in advertising.
Yeah, reduction in advertising, increase in postage offset each other.
So the line right near it, advertising, you see that reduction.
So we might as well add page 2 into the mix. Which gets us into utilities, care of buildings, as well as some college transition regular instruction on page 2. Page 1 and page 2, Anthony.
So, the very first item, MAEA, I expect is the Maine Art Education Association?
Maine Adult Education Association.
Adult Education, thank you. And Learn and Sopris?
So Learn is it's an organization that provides professional development for teachers in order to get their required contact hours. We invest in it because that gives them the option of many free courses and some greatly reduced price courses that help them with their 90 contact hours.
Said anything? We'll go to 3.
Sorry, I feel like if you mentioned this, please forgive this question, but everything in the college transitions is being cut, like, you know.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that happened is there are a lot, you can see there are a lot of categories, and everybody gets paid out of these multiple categories. And so since I came here, I've not understood why we have so many.
Okay.
So I did some research with the state about, we must teach, adult education must teach in 3 areas. College transitions is also taught in another area, which is a grant-funded position from the state. And so we decided to zero out college transition money and put it in another fund just to provide fewer budgetary funds. We also zeroed out Americans with disabilities for the same reason. There's not a good reason to have the category. We do the education in every area. And so we zeroed that out as well, and we zeroed out CNA because CNA is still workforce training, and so workforce training is a required area, literacy is a required area, and diploma is a required area. And so we've tried to make the budget a little bit simpler by focusing on the required areas where we put our money.
Thank you.
So next year, you'll see that reduced number of lines, and won't see all those zeroed out things.
Right, of course.
Where's mostly the classes being held?
I'm sorry, what?
Where are the classes typically?
At the central office. The diploma classes or the enrichment classes?
All, I guess all.
So enrichment can spread throughout the district. We hold quite a few in central office in the evenings. Paloxing, I think Paloxing is here, but I'm not certain. The summer camps are all over. All the buildings are open to adult education, and we share with whoever is there.
And I'm just looking at the custodian salaries, is it the district's custodian, or is this
So the
separate?
custodian in this case is, so we share the building with central office. And so central office and adult education share the cost of maintenance of the building, including custodian.
You mentioned workforce training. Workforce training is on page 3. So we might as well add page 3 into the mix. If anyone has questions, we'll move on to page 3 as well. See none. Continue on to adult education disabilities. There's a short part of that on the top of page 4 before we move on to high school completion. Page 4. Yes, Bree.
Can you define what is the Adult Ed Hub and what that part means? When we
Yes.
started digital literacy, said it was paid for.
Right. So in Maine, about 5 or 6 years ago, the state decided, so the state hands out money. They hand out AFLA, which is the American Family Literacy Act. This was the grant which we lost so much money this year. Also Maine College and Career Access Grants. And in the past, each program in Maine applied for money, and well, the state decided it was too much work for them. So they divided all adult education programs in Maine into hubs. Our hub includes Lewiston, Auburn, Oxford Hills, Lisbon, Oak,
RC16.
Mechanic Falls, Oak Hills, Sacramento Valley, and I know I'm missing some, but it gives you the essence. We're actually a large portion of the Central Maine Community College footprint, not all of it, but a large portion of it. And so we work together. Number one, all grants are divided into the hubs. So we are, for example, fiscal agent for the Maine Jobs and Recovery Program grant, and the college success coordinator works for us. Lewiston manages the AFLA and MCA grant, and we work together. The idea is that if a student comes to us and we don't have a class, we send them to a program that's close by that does, and in theory, that's the goal, and so we all work together.
So this is saying here that this is our portion that we have to take on as being part of that hub, is to pay for the North Star Digital Literacy?
In the past, the hub had a grant that paid for the North Star program. That grant ended, and so we do use the program. We provide digital literacy training, not only for our high school diploma students, but for any community member who is interested in some sort of digital literacy training. They can come in and without cost take a digital literacy program, and North Star is the program we use for that.
I have another question.
Go right ahead.
So you know I'm going to ask about our computer software
Mhm.
programs as well. So I'd like to know a little bit more about how IXL is being used in the adult ed. I personally am familiar with CAMI, but I don't know if others on the board are, and Burlington English, if you could explain those.
So CAMI is my favorite. When I came here, this program was on paper. With, number one, with our students, that's a disaster. And because it doesn't function like a regular school, a student is not necessarily here all day. They're in and out. They may be going to work. In some cases, they may be going home to take care of kids. So one of the first things I did when I became director was to make the program digital. All teachers submit all assignments online. If they want to do a worksheet, that's great. We scan it in, we put it in Google Classroom. In order to do that, you have to have some sort of PDF editing software, and that's what CAMI does for us. And so this allows us to have everything online, which gives us a greater ability to manage our students, because a student can come to me and talk to me about the same work they could talk to anybody about, because I can pull up the classroom. It also makes it impossible for a teacher to lose things. So as you all know, kids are sure that we've lost everything that they can do. I have a record. IXL, math is unique for us because we require 3 math classes in order to graduate. But unlike all the other classes, math is something you start taking when you get to us, and when you finish, you finish. We don't put them necessarily on a schedule because we found that it's one of the areas that the students who come to us have the most difficulty with. And so IXL provides them the ability to work at home, to practice at home. It also is a tremendous help for our high set students, because high set students are even more disconnected from the educational system than a high school diploma student. So we want to make sure that when a student is coming to us to take a high set, that they have all of the resources they need in order to make sure their math skills are up to snuff. The high set test for math is going to go deep into Algebra 2. And so it's a pretty rigorous test, and IXL gives us the ability to give them the ability to practice and study beyond the time they have with us. And Burlington English, we invested in Burlington English in the beginning as a hub. We've kept it because, number one, we do have multilingual students, and Burlington English is a fantastic way, again, to expand our ability to teach. So we do have language classes every Tuesday and Thursday, but obviously language acquisition requires a lot more work than that. Burlington English does that for us. We also began using it for high school diploma students last year. I walked into a class at one point, and as I watched the student, I realized he couldn't read. He learned how to fake it, but he absolutely could not read. And so we started teaching reading classes, and Burlington English is fantastic because it reads to them and then has them read it back. It listens to their voice. It listens to how they enunciate the words. And so it really helps them to decode words, again, when they don't always have a teacher with them. So those are the 3 biggest programs we use for diploma students. We also have a software called High Set Academy. This is a hub program. We are the fiscal agents for this particular program, but this is the software we use in order to prepare students for the high set. And so when a student comes to us, they have to take a pre-test, and we do not let them take a high set test until they test well prepared. The standard, by the way, is just prepared. We don't. They have to test well prepared. Their first test will come on High Set Academy, and then High Set Academy will give us the diagnostics and the areas where they need to work, and that's where the teachers take over and build an educational plan for them.
Thank you.
So all of adult education is on the table now. All 4 pages, or 5 pages, I should say. Are there any additional questions? Oops, sorry, Kyle.
It's not really so much on the budget, but I'm I guess looking to see what percentage of adults actually graduating versus potential students that don't.
From our program?
Yeah.
The percentage is quite high, and it's gotten higher since I came here. When I came to this district in, I'd say 2012, one of the things I noticed was that the average student put together about 7 weeks, and then they would fall away for a variety of reasons. They didn't have childcare, they don't have good study skills. One of the things we changed is that we shorten from semesters to sessions. So our sessions are now 8 to 9 weeks, and in that time, students can earn half credit. And so what happens is students who would work at a diploma for 3 or 4 years and have nothing because they didn't stay long enough start to build credits. And and the results of that is that even if a student leaves after about 7, 8 weeks, they have half a credit. And when they come back, and they do come back, they're not starting from scratch. And so that means that they're less likely to drop out altogether in the end. I would say our graduation rate, I haven't measured it, but I would say it's probably around 90%.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the people who've fallen away over the years, and I can only think of a couple, because we contend with them until they're done.
Yeah.
My philosophy is we work with you. Is if you want to do it, we'll make sure you finish.
Any other questions? Adult ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your support, and please remember graduation is May 30th.
May
Thank you.
30th.
All right.
I don't want to be the only one who's
Hi, I was there too.
yeah.
Okay, so now we are moving on to Article 19, which is our capital reserve funds. I imagine that's Gabby.
Back to me. So for our current fiscal year, for fiscal year 26, we are proposing to move $200,000 from the district's unallocated fund balance into the existing special education reserve fund. This is to use towards future unanticipated expenses for special education, such as increased staffing needs, supplies, or contracted services due to increased special education students and needs. At this time, we have $200,000 in the special education reserve fund, but we may need to access those funds in fiscal year 25. We're going to wait until we get closer to the end of the year and come back to discuss that with the Finance Committee and the full board in May.
But they already approved 15,000.
15,000.
15,000. So last spring, after the budget, you approved using that because we had to add a teacher at the last minute.
This year, we would like to establish a system administration reserve fund, and we are recommending $100,000 being transferred from the unallocated fund balance into this reserve fund. This reserve fund would be used to upgrade the antiquated financial software that the district presently uses. It's called ADS Pro Fund. It was discontinued as of 2010. It had been added into the budget, I know at least one time before we got here, before Carrie and I started here, but you know, as with everything, when you try to cut expenses, that's one of the first things to go. We have met with 2 different software companies, and we will discuss that further with the Finance Committee next week. But this would cover the expense of the upgrade and also overtime associated with the hourly staff, because there will be significant additional hours in conversion. We are proposing to transfer $700,000 from the unallocated fund balance to the already established capital repair reserve fund. This is to work on several of the items on our capital improvement list, which includes the roof A at Leeds, replace the high school elevator, install new water tanks at TPS, and many other projects that are still in the works. We are proposing to add $9,200 to the already established technology reserve fund so that we can continue to build it up to cover the once every 3 years Aruba licensing that we are going to use the technology reserve fund for fiscal year 26 to cover. That also is the district portion of the E-rate project for fiscal year 26, correct? Okay.
Just say yes.
That was like, that was rough. That was a rough ask.
Finally, we are asking to add $200,000 to the already established regular instruction reserve fund in preparation for the potential loss of title grants, which are federal grants. We do not know the future of them, but this will add a buffer in the event that we lose that federal funding. We have access to these funds through board approval. Jeff?
No, yeah, I thought we were doing 300. Is this
This will make it 300.
There's 100 in it already.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then If this is not needed, which we of course hope it will not be needed, we will propose to move that $200,000 into the capital repair fund in fiscal year 24, fiscal year 27. I think that's everything.
Yep.
Anyone have questions about these? I'm thinking of a few things here, but go ahead.
Can you just remind me how much is currently in the fund balance?
Oh.
You're talking the unallocated fund balance?
Yep.
So this is an unaudited, unallocated fund balance because we still have not gotten our fiscal year 24 financial statement. The unaudited general fund, unassigned fund balance is $7.2 million. Of that, we can presently hold on to 9% of the prior year's budget, which would be approximately $2.9 million. The amount in excess, so, I'm sorry, let me back up. That was $7 million from fiscal year 24. We used $742,000 to carry forward. We put $1 million into reserve funds for fiscal year 25. That leaves us with an unallocated fund balance of $5.5 million. You can have 9% of your budget, which is $2.9 million. So then we have to come up with a plan for $2.5 million. We're projecting to carry forward $555,000 for fiscal year 26. And then we're also now projecting to put $1.2 million into reserve funds with fiscal year 26.
So this is the 1.2 million right here.
This is the
that
1.2
we're
million.
moving from that balance into.
And then that would leave us with, again, unaudited,
right,
approximately $800,000 in unallocated fund balance over, the allowable 9%. Too many numbers? Sorry.
So right now, we're allowed
My brain
to-
doesn't work in
Yeah,
finance terms, so I'm trying really hard to.
So right now, we're allowed to keep 9%, but that is supposed to change. That's the post-pandemic number. Prior to that, it was 5%.
Okay.
So it's supposed to go back to 5% for next fiscal year, but there's a bill in the legislature trying to allow schools to keep up to 9% still. So it may change, but right now we're under 9%. If the law doesn't change, then we'll have to make a plan to keep no more than 5%.
And I remember from prior years' discussions that you feel pretty strongly that keeping that higher percentage is something we need to be doing to be stable.
So what I can say about keeping funds there is if one of the towns doesn't make their payment, if we don't get reimbursement from a grant quickly, if we have to tap into, reserve funds, it diminishes our ability to count on that. We can't just turn around and make a large payment to one of our projects and then get reimbursed.
Well, I remember you equating it to 1 month of cash flow before, and I can't remember how close that was, but needing to have kind of that on hand in order to make payroll and everything, it just makes a lot of sense, so. Yeah. Anyone else, thoughts here? Go ahead, Peter.
Only thought that comes to my mind is on the last one. One, there's still, who knows, the federal government swears that all the money's gonna be coming eventually if you take the lawsuit situation out of the picture. So there's supposedly not gonna be any real change on what comes to us, just the direction it comes via, once the SPAC gets settled. That aside, I have to relate, I was forced to promise to relate that there's a greater concern coming from Augusta now than the feds in a variety of methods or reasons, from a complete reallocation of the ED 279s for this year. The number we have now potentially could change. My understanding is Portland did not like the way it came out, so Portland has a lot of pull in the legislature, and they're forcing to redo it or reevaluate it, and so forth, along with the fact that we're going into this budget currently $750 million in the shortfall. So there's issues, there's real concern there. All that being said, none of that will be known until we're done our budget, which is the worst part of this. We don't know how bad a situation's gonna be, if we're gonna have a curtailment or whatever the deal is. So, long story short, that last sentence, should we change that to just not be title grants?
So,
To deal with,
and I don't have to put that in what's
Yeah.
voted on.
but I thought we had to be fairly specific on where we could use it.
So
Can it
it's,
be all regular instruction?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's to cover any expense within regular instruction.
'Cause I was also I was about ready to say something about that last one too, and for the same point that Peter just brought up. I've heard the same thing from some of our legislators, that I was actually thinking we might want to bump that up. I was actually wondering if that add 200 is 200 on top of the 300 that we had already set aside. I think buffering our regular instruction a little bit more in order to ensure that we can weather a storm if, let's say, both we lose title grants and ED 279 money. Again, it's hard to say how much is there, but I think that that's, like we talked about last meeting, trying to buffer for that uncertainty in that reserve fund. Because if we don't use it, we can bring it to, we can later transfer to capital repair, which we obviously could use the money there, but for the short term, it could really help us buffer this uncertainty. So I don't know exactly, I haven't tried to do the math on exactly how much more we should put there, but I think trying to bring that line item up would be good.
We can look at that and look at the change of the language to sort of see, to make it a little bit.
This language was more along the lines of why we were anticipating
Yeah, no, I
that.
understand.
That wouldn't necessarily be what we write into the warrants that are voted on.
Yeah.
I think that we would still leave that vague to cover any unanticipated expenses within the regular instruction warrant, as approved by the board. Like, we can't do anything with those funds without the board approval.
No, I'm realizing it's regular instruction specific. Are we potentially at risk on the special education side as well?
We get way more money in special ed, that's 600,000? Yeah,
So, and I thought we had a special ed reserve fund.
we do. It's
Yes.
got $200,000 in it.
Does it say it? Yes, it's already up there.
So
Yeah.
we have 200, we're proposing to put 200, but we may have to access the existing 200 this current fiscal year.
Yes, for the main care reimbursements, yeah.
Can we do something with the simple wording of a reserve account to cover? The answer is no.
It has to be
I'm
specific
glad
to
we're
a warrant.
connected right there.
It has to be specific to a warrant.
I will say, sort of, this conversation came up with superintendents when I met with everybody last week, and I floated this idea like my board is looking at, and it made me very grateful that you all have been willing to hold on to that and then use it for reserve funds for capital improvements and those things, because other superintendents, like, I don't have enough to put in a reserve account. So I felt a lot better about the stability of us based on, as opposed to other districts that are just in a different place. They've either carried over a ton more money, like a shocking amount of money, or, some of the districts that had failed budgets, like all those things. People make those decisions for all kinds of reasons, but it made me feel like we are in a better place to be able to provide ourselves a safety net if we should need it, so.
Well, I think that thank you goes to the two of you, probably for more than anything, so thank you for keeping us there. Yeah. Teresa.
I just wanted to remind people that last year we received almost 400 and just a shy of 475,000 in the title grants, which funded 9 positions, all our professional development and some of the other pieces like Atlas and Early Bird that have been put into the budget. And as of right now, we only have a preliminary figure for one of those titles, which is $8,500. So.
Down from what?
Last year it was 13,374.41.
So we built a budget in title with an estimate, a loss of funding of about 45,000.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So we
That's correct. And then this amount is, I mean, it's hard to tell because we can put them all together, but between the special ed and title funds, it's over $1 million in funding that we've been receiving.
So I said this at the last meeting, I think the loss of funding will probably be able to keep those people who are on salary. It will be the loss of professional development, that will be the biggest concern in terms of with the new math materials and continued training with the new reading materials. I think that's where the biggest risk is that I see in terms of being able to like not just hand teachers stuff and say, here, figure it out, because that's kind of what that looks like. If you don't have people here to train them, you just hand them the stuff and say you have to do this. And we had training this year, and it was a heavy lift, and that was with training and spending a lot of money on training. So I don't know what that would look like without it. I think it would be a lot of money that we spend that ends up not being that effective if teachers don't know how to use it appropriately. So I think
This year
that's
you
the
were
biggest
talking
worry.
specifically to reading curriculum this year?
Reading the curriculum this year, we had money for training because we had grant money and also the title money. I think next year we're targeting a big chunk of title money for the math training and for the continued reading training. And I think that is where our biggest risk is if that money disappears, how we're going to provide that training to teachers. So I think that's what makes me nervous.
Any more reserve account?
There isn't any more reserves.
Yeah.
I don't, so we might as well move on. That was the last item there. I don't know, there's another section here called federal grant in our books.
Yep.
I don't know.
So that questions had come up about how we spend that money, so we just, both Teresa and Rebecca created a document just to give you the breakdown, so people would know how it's spent. This is all just the federal, so the first one you see is special ed, that's the local entitlement, that's the $600,000, that's the fraction of a percent of the 40% the federal government said they would give out states for special ed. This is their tiny little portion, which is, we are going to be using that. We've moved some high-cost positions into that, and then the next, and that shows you, and then there's the summary that comes from the budgeting that Gabby does through the software, and then the second one, oh, that's local entitlement still. So local entitlement is the carryover money and the new money.
So the first section is what we're currently working with. That is the budget for fiscal year '25. The second section that looks a little different, that kind of resembles what you're looking at, that is the ADS report that shows you what has been spent through February. The third section is the anticipated budget planning for fiscal year '26 if we receive those funds from local entitlement. That is all local entitlement. Then we go into title grants. This is the ADS report for fiscal year '25 for Title I, and then fiscal year '25 for Title V. Those are the two title grants that we reallocate all of the different titles into. And then attached are fiscal year '25 and '26. What is this, Teresa?
This is the planned.
It's the estimates of what we received.
Right.
Okay.
So
And how it would
actually,
be budgeted.
yeah, that's the
Right.
top,
Okay.
above the shaded line is
What
what
we
we
received.
received this year, the year we're currently in. And then we only took a rough estimate because at the time we printed this, we didn't have our Title V allocation. But our Title V allocation is now been given to us in a preliminary number, and that can fluctuate up and down. Just because we get a preliminary, it's kind of like the insurance, it can vary by, I think, as much as $5,000, I think, in the past, although I would have to go back and look. So next year, we've been told our preliminary allocation is $8,447.34. And if you look above, you can see the 93,000 that was in Title V, almost 94,000 for this year. That's because we zeroed out. If you look at the very top line, you'll see some money in Title I, Title II, Title IV, and Title V. We are allowed to move money between the titles, and so we move, so the final project totals shows 380, just over 381,000. That's for salaries, benefits, and supplies in Title I, and then most of Title V has been our professional development. So for example, I just did a quick calculation. It was approximately $25,000 for the 6 on-site training days for our trainer for interreading. Next year, because we're expecting a reduction, I think we budgeted $30,000 total for reading and math. We want to have 6 days for math and 3 days for reading. But we really did not budget. Like, a lot of this professional development has been art teachers going to conferences, foreign language teachers going to conferences, our health and PE teachers going to conferences. We have put such a tight limit on it for now that we're not sure that we would even be able to do that. Travel, we've had a travel budget because if people, we have our nurses going to training in, I think it's New Hampshire, maybe it's Massachusetts in a couple months, and we pay for their hotel accommodations. This is a regional conference, a national conference, and we're not budgeting for any travel.
So the next page, you can see the planned projects, like just the general, what we're thinking that's gonna look like.
Oh, I had forgotten that was there, yes.
Yeah, you did that.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
That was just one portion. We're looking at the very last page at this point, correct?
Well, I
Maybe, I don't know. Guess we all have to.
FY 25, 26, actual
Yeah.
and planned projects.
So it's showing here 62,000 under Title V, correct?
Yes. We know we're going to need 30,000, so
Okay.
there will be some money left over if we get what we get.
Okay, so I get a little confused earlier because you said something about we're only getting 8 right now, but that's just one portion of that potential 62.
Right, we have to find out what we're getting for funding in Title I, II, and IV, and then when we know all of that, we know our total
Okay.
allocation.
So just one of
It's
those
like
at this
4
point.
different bank
Okay.
accounts,
No,
so
it
we
was-
just have to figure it all out.
that's what I thought. And so this year, all of that money is basically being designated primarily to the math and
For
And-
next
and
year, that will
reading.
take up half of it if we get what we're guessing, projecting, based on this year's cuts.
And the other is just the rest of the teachers going to conferences somewhere?
Yes.
Yes, Anthony.
It's unclear to me why these are called grants. Is this money that we apply for? Is this money that just comes to us from the federal government? And they just call it grant because that's what the word
It's
they like to
both.
use?
It's money that is allocated to us, and then I have to write a grant with what they call projects, and it has to be approved. So there are specific limitations on what you can use each of these title funds for. And what happens is we are told this is your allocation. Now you decide how you want to use your Title I funds. Do you want to pay for one teacher? Do you want to pay for 2 ed techs? So we get to determine. There's a public comment period that happens with the opening of the grants, and I put that out each year, and people can provide information. And then I work with the school administrators, and we do a comprehensive needs assessment to help us determine what our highest needs are. And then from there, we look at what we have for funding, and we determine how we want to write the project.
So what happens if they don't approve?
Then you have to redo it. You just keep doing it until you get approval.
So this is a law that is basically the federal government wanting to invest in providing education to low-income disadvantaged students. Like, that's the purpose of Title I, is to make to provide funds for schools to make sure that students who are economically disadvantaged get services, like get the education they need, right? So that's sort of the purpose, federal lives, and the law that goes with it. So that's why the rules that apply have to do with how you use the money. So we couldn't just decide randomly, like, we need to spend money on music instruments, we don't have enough, right? That would not be an allowable expense.
And the other thing too is our schools have to qualify to be considered Title I schools, and we currently only have Green and Leeds, which are school-wide Title I schools, which means it gives you more flexibility with what you can do with the funds, but there are really specific limitations, like Carrie said, what you can do. We can't buy furniture out of Title I, for example.
Anyone else? Oh, yeah.
Is it an economic issue that creates a school to be?
Yes, at one point, Turner Primary and Turner Elementary all qualified, as well as Tripp Middle School. We have to do what's called rank and distribution, so I work with Dave Roberts, and we figure out the poverty rates for each school compared to the number of students. And the program that we use, Grants for Me, calculates it. So then we have to follow that rank and distribution. So when we're looking at now who we're paying for positions, Leeds ranks number 1, Green is number 2, Tripp Middle School's number 3. We're not funding Tripp Middle School through this grant this year, or next year. So between those, I have to make sure that the salaries and benefits of staff, we spend the most money at Leeds.
Because the idea is the money follows where the needy kids are. And if we had more students who qualified for free and reduced lunch, then we would get more money, right? Lewiston gets $1 gazillion because of their population, so.
But their budget is a gazillion.
Right, so the money follows, the money's supposed to follow the kids, right? And that is measured through free and reduced lunch.
And so in Turner, when I was the principal there, we hit over 40% poverty rate, and we were school-wide. But once you dropped below a certain level 2 years in a row, you were grandfathered for the first year, but by the second year, if your rates weren't up, then you were not eligible the next year, you didn't qualify.
And I assume if you drop below, if you rise above, it's immediate for the next year? Or do they grandfather the
Yes.
opposite direction as well?
We have to do rank and distribution every year,
Yeah.
and once it hit Turner Primary School, it was inevitable that it would hit. I mean, we knew it was coming for Turner Elementary School, and that's why Tripp Middle School right now is 3rd in line, so.
Thank you.
Further grant questions, title questions? All right, seeing none. The next item on our agenda is public comment, so we'll go to that, and then I think we'll come back for our own discussion here before we adjourn. But from a public comment standpoint, we've only got one person out there. I don't know.
No, just that.
You know, okay, so it does not look like we have anyone wishing to speak.
Does he need more seating?
Yeah, right, we'll get more benches for you next time.
Round of applause for sticking it out.
Yeah. So we have just kind of gone through this, our second large workshop here. If you remember, kind of on Peter's suggestion, I thought it was a good one, and perhaps we should do it again here. Just go around the table, I think, and share maybe some initial thoughts you might have now about where we're at currently with the budget. So I think it's helpful, as Carrie has said. You know, she is really listening here and trying to make adjustments, meeting to meeting. I'll start, I guess, and we'll go to you, Anthony, and we'll come back around. I always kind of go left. We'll start this time. Right. I'm glad to see that the overall increase is down below 8%. As I mentioned last week, I thought some of the cuts on the table had gone, were needed. We need to talk through some of those things, particularly the PE But like I said last time, I'm glad that came back. This is a challenge. I can tell everyone that's coming up here has been looking very hard at trying to find ways to save money, and it's starting to get painful. I think I think it's been painful, and I don't think anyone enjoys this. I think we're starting to get to a place where I'm feeling comfortable with what was presented tonight. I don't have anything significant in my mind other than perhaps trying to buffer that reserve fund in the anticipation of the potential loss of funds. It's probably the only big thing I have here. Obviously, we're going to revisit some other items next time. Some of the things that Peter brought up, I think it's good to revisit those. But overall, I'm feeling pretty good. Anthony.
So I agree that the reserve funds are a very wise course of action. So I support that. I don't know about I would like to put additional money in as you recommended, but I just don't know. I mean, I would like to save more for my retirement, but I can't because I have to pay other bills. And I think I would feel better if our overall increase was closer to the kinds of increases that we're obligated to go up with payroll because of the contracts that we worked with. I think close to 8% is still above that, and so it just makes it a little bit. It's really easy to understand. Like, you know, inflation goes up. You've got these extra costs. You've contracted into, and you can kind of accept that. But then the stuff above that just gets a little bit harder to reconcile oneself with. And so I think that as hard as these cuts have been, I would like to see them go a little bit deeper.
Okay. Any, just before we move on, I just was wondering if you had any suggestions necessarily. Or are you looking for more options?
Yeah, well, I mean, the hard part is that the biggest increases are in things that kind of don't have a lot of control over. In terms of, you know, you got to repair the building. There's cracks. You got to fix it. And then there's payroll. You know, the benefits and salaries are huge. And so, you know, I look at the additional positions. Would it be great to have more help in the office for whatever department? Yes, it would. I'd love to have somebody to come in and help me get things done around the house. I can't do it. And I mean, I support the idea, but I just don't know that this is the year to make some of those things happen. And maybe there's cuts that need to happen. You know, you buy a house with a swimming pool's great, and then something happens with your employment, and suddenly you can't pay to maintain the pool anymore. And so then it just becomes this thing that you're paying insurance on and all this stuff that you're better off just filling it in, you know, planting a garden. And that's a hard thing to say, but I think that's kind of the reality.
I'd rather have a garden than a swimming pool personally too, but go ahead, Ashley.
I feel fairly comfortable with the reductions that were made to get it under 8. I still have concerns it's going to be high to taxpayers are going to proceed as high. You know, we've all sat here and gone through it and can see that it's really difficult to find cuts. Taxpayers do not do that, so they're just going to be looking at that percentage. That's my only concern would be to have, I guess, backup ideas for what it will look like if it comes back again. I don't know when's the last time they've had a budget this big go to the town.
This high?
That's 7%.
More than 8?
2022, the budget failed. That was the budget right before I got here. That one failed. I don't remember what the increase was. Do you remember either of you?
6.
Crystal, you were here.
Yeah, you were here.
It was.
We had agreed to a 1% increase, I believe.
Is Does anyone? Evan, do you remember?
I don't have that book in front of me, it's on my family bookshelf.
All right.
Yeah, so I don't know what the history is of a percentage that's large going to the town and their history of.
My first year, a higher percentage went to the town.
It's not that long ago.
That year was more significant. I think that number was higher than this one.
I don't know if I have it in,
Yeah, pretty sure.
oh, the first.
But the
Our
inflation
first,
rate
our
was
first
that was
budget,
high, yeah.
our first budget
So,
was higher than this.
It was way below the inflation rate.
But other than that, outside of things we don't have any control over, I don't have any particular items I could bring up to cut, right?
Bree?
I mean, I need a little bit more time to think because there was a lot of warrants that we went through and a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just be emailing some thoughts later. I think that there's a lot more that we can still look at and see, like, my thought process through all of this, and I think, like, Gabby had kind of mentioned it at one point too, is really about, like, what's going to have the biggest impact on our students and staff to be able to have the best education and the best buildings to be able, safest buildings, to be able to get the best education. And so it's a tough year. We're not necessarily going to get what we want from the state. So we know we have to maybe cut where we can to make it feasible for everyone. But at the same time, I don't want to necessarily cut where it would directly impact students and their education. And I realize there's lots of items like facilities, like we have to have safe buildings, right? But in some places, I want to look at what sort of impact does this particular item that someone's requesting to add in or someone wants to cut, how is that going to directly impact education and including the staff that run the building and teach the kids, right? So that's where I'm coming at with the budget, and so there's some things that we are trying to cut that I disagree with, and there are some things that are still in the budget that I think we should be cutting instead, so.
Okay. Krista?
I don't feel like I have too much to add. I don't like that we're here. I wish that it was completely different. I am really nervous for the vote and potentially having to cut programs, like, and to sit here, like, art's not, like, we're not an artsy family, but there are other families who are art. That was just the first thing that popped into my brain, and I can't imagine taking some portion of that away from a high school student or elementary students. I know there are other things that could be cut, facilities-wise, transportation or something like that, but again, I feel like we're nickel and diming at this point. I don't know. I got nothing. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. You don't have to, people don't have to say things. I want to try to get any significant thoughts people have when they happen, so.
Well, it might come across as nothing, but I have a fair amount.
Well,
Yeah,
please,
so-
please.
But anyways, am I comfortable? I'm very pleased to see it at 8. I was a little nervous that after Leeds, it was gonna be pushing up near 9. I'm happy to see below 8. Turner, just scraped below 8 at 7.99. But I guess, it's just like 99 cents. You're below that magic number. Yeah, it sounds better, I guess.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we were talking about inflation a second ago, and we're talking about the 8%. I just think it's important to understand that everyone remembers that the budget's actually going up 6%, right? And it's the contribution from the town is 8%. The way that funding calculation works is that there's 2 different percentages. So, I just wanted to make sure everyone has that clear. Anyone that might not know that differentiation.
But the important number to the taxpayer is the amount that goes up to the town.
Correct.
I very much feel that significant cuts in the discussions need to come from that line over there directed by this line over here. And I try not to get too, believe it or not, from my early discussions, wound up in the details of it. There are a few things that I brought up this evening, mostly out of appearance. I think they ought to be addressed, if nothing else, out of appearance, especially a year that if you're cutting employees and potentially, we did technically cut a program at the middle school. I think that program wasn't going to be there regardless of the budget, to be honest with you, just the way things were going. But still, years like that, I think you need to take a bigger account into little items that we talk about what our staff is thinking and feeling. And sometimes it's not about what they get, it's about what they see other people get that irritates them more. And, but anyways, that aside, the 7.9 or the 8% potentially could be a little tough to the district to pass. It could very well also pass. To me, it's a 50-50 at 8%. I've seen much higher go through, and I've seen lower be fought like you can't believe. So to me, that's a 50-50. When we were over 10, I could have told you right then it wasn't going to go anywhere. It was dead. So at 8, I think there's a 50-50. I can't tell you right now if I'm going to vote for it at that. I'm not really sure. I still think it's a little bit high, but I understand where it's coming from. And the vast majority of it is something, though I hate to say this phrase, we have no control over it, because the fact of the matter is we have control over every single item in that budget. It's just how much do we want to fight legally to do it. So the only other thing that I feel that we need to be cautious about, and Joe and I alluded to it earlier with money going into reserves, is, pretty sure there's nobody here that doesn't know that I have 2 siblings in the legislature. And I get told daily, twice a day, in not the most kind terms, that we need to expect a major hit this year, coming from a couple different directions. And that we could be looking, I don't know, I'm afraid it might be, I'm hoping that they're feeling that the sky's falling, but we could be looking at over $1 million cut from what we currently think we're at. Because they're talking significant cuts coming from the state that they just can't admit to doing yet. That is all coming in May and June, once the real discussions happen. Because the budget being passed today is completely different than the whole 2-year budget. There's quite a long diatribe to go into about it, but it just isn't pretty in Augusta, trying to cut costs everywhere. So I'm afraid that $300,000 we're looking at could potentially not even come close to covering the shortfall we get this year. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that the people who keep telling me this twice a day are wrong, but I think we need to be prepared and have a plan, and I am confident that Carrie and the staff have an emergency plan in the back of their head of how are we going to deal with having the same numbers that we had last year, for example, because didn't we gain $1 million this year?
1.3 million this year.
So, that might not be there once they reevaluate the ED 279. So that's probably my biggest concern. But to get back to it, where we stand, 8%, 50-50, I don't think we need.
7.99.
Yes, 8.
It's fought really hard. When I saw it go below 8, when Gabby plugged in those efficiency things, I was like, oh my God, Peter's going to see this below 8.
No,
You won't give it to me.
8.
You won't give it to me.
Really
Sorry,
90 cents.
7.999999.
Thank you.
It doesn't go that far.
And that's just for Turner.
I know, Turner.
Just for Turner.
It's always depressing because
Leeds
Turner's
is
here.
below 6. Was it Leeds is below 6?
I don't know, I've got 10
Green's
different
below
screens
6?
up now.
Yes.
It's all over.
You all need to reevaluate, except Turner, never again.
I mean, the principals will tell you the first time we looked at the budget, it was like, oh my God. So we've come a long way.
Yeah.
We've come
So
a really
anyways,
long way.
that's my general thoughts, concerns.
Very good.
Yeah, I felt like the initial budget that we had in front of us, which was, I think, 11.1.
0.13.
Yeah.
11.13. I did not feel like even that was a swimming pool budget. I felt like that was a reasonable budget. And there was nothing there was no like irresponsible spending in that. That was just like the nitty gritty right there. And so to get it to 7.999%, I think is like impressive. I think you guys like did a great job getting it down to that point. And I'm happy to see it there. I think that's awesome. And I don't think there's any bigger investment that we can make as a community than in like our children and their education. And that comes back to us tenfold, right? Like we invest in the education of our children, and then in response we get like, you know, citizens that live here, work here, pay taxes here. And so it's hard for me to like not justify that spending. I agree with Joe and Peter that, you know, bulking up those reserve funds is a responsible decision because we don't know what's coming down. Yeah, I mean, I think if hopefully we don't have to, but I think if we have to make further cuts, I don't want to cut people, or positions. I don't want to cut anything that's going to be something that our students are going to benefit from. Yeah, that's where I stand. But I also think we need to like manifest positivity. Everyone is like, I'm worried we're going to be great. It's going to be great. I think it's a very good budget.
I just want to say that my first budget, it was a 13% increase.
I thought it was
13.63.
Just saying. And I'm not saying that's what, I remember the panic.
And I just want to say this too, like, a couple of us have said we're happy with the 8%. I don't know if anyone's actually happy, okay, with that. I think it's important, especially if there's sound bites going on out there. I think what we're talking about is that we started, like you said, at 13%, and we've spent a lot of time making cuts. Well, you've spent a lot of time making cuts that you've brought to us. You have spent a lot of time looking at your budget to trim and make cuts, and really appreciate that you've done that. And I think we finally got to a place where I'm getting comfortable, right? And I don't think anyone's excited about the increase. But that said, we'll move to you, Al.
Sure. No, I commend all of you for taking such hard looks at all of your budgets. You know, I said last time when we did the roundtable, the special ed and facilities really have us kind of behind the 8 ball. It's a 1.8, you know, just those two items are $1.8 million. That leaves only $550,000 that are of the increase in other areas, which includes the salaries and the benefits that all go up automatically.
And 200 of that is for our books for math and reading.
Curriculum.
Yeah, so I mean, there's not a lot of fat in 550,000 out of 35 million, you know, so I think that the special ed and facilities budgets going forward are probably, we're getting close to where they should be. I think those huge increases will go away in the future. You know, I don't think we're necessarily gonna see 15% increases in those budgets consistently year to year. I still think the facilities maybe will, but you know, I think we're getting back to a good point with that. So no, I mean, like I said, I commend all of them for, I mean, there's not a lot of fat that I can see. So I'm comfortable, and I'm glad we got it down, I mean, even further from the initial preliminary.
Thank you. Okay, we can't have leaking roofs for too long. Yeah. Go, Cal.
To go back to your massive budget to our adjoining town from the south of 110 million, I'm glad we don't have that for a budget and have to work with something like that, because I feel like there'd be a lot of fat in there that we could play with and get rid of. So you guys did a great job at, you know, doing what you guys did to put it, you know, in a reasonable manner, because no one does want to see an increase, but I think that it's manageable where we're at. I feel like the voters will, you know, decide, I guess, on the fate of it. I think we've done a good job at, you know, reviewing it all, and I think everybody here that is, you know, obviously are scratching their heads to try to figure out what they can do with it. So nice work. getting us to where we're at.
All right, so we're not done, right? We can still please keep looking at this. If you have questions, send them in to Carrie. We'll be talking about this again next meeting. Carrie, if you want to have
Should we
some.
add a budget workshop to the 27th just to go over?
I think any updates, absolutely. I think just kind of from here on out, we should expect to have some sort of budget discussion. We have, so yes, adding a workshop for March 27 meeting, which is next time.
Yeah.
When do we vote?
Yeah, I was
Go
going to
ahead,
review
Carrie.
that. Yeah, so you all have to vote on this April 10th meeting. That's a hard deadline because we won't be able to get books out to taxpayers and all that. So what we have as a placeholder is April 3rd. If I would say, and I will defer to you guys, but if we still need to deliberate, right? Because I think when we're done on the 27th, Gabby and I'll, there'll still be some work to do between now and the 27th. And then really what is left after that is waiting for insurance. So we wouldn't need a meeting on the 3rd to discuss that. Typically what has happened is we've brought that number to you on the 10th because that's about when we get it. And then, but deliberating beyond the 10th is really not possible. So I think maybe on the 27th or at some point you guys can decide whether or not we actually need a meeting on the 3rd.
We were talking about that. I'm hopeful we don't, but I think it really matters how this workshop goes on the 27th. What kind of things people bring forward, how much more we need to work through. But that kind of puts some punctuation on what the 27th meeting's workshop is. So please try to bring forward.
And then from what I've heard tonight, the only folks that I would want to make sure are here on the 29th are Dave Coburn and Jim Sequeira to talk about some questions in those two budgets. But I don't, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm not, 27, sorry. I don't think we need to review all the other warrant articles, like the principles and all that. Like, is that accurate?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, if there are questions that are best answered by them, hopefully, again, let's get some things submitted in writing, and hopefully that'll give Carrie time to consult and get answers back to us. So, again, the 27th will be a good workshop.
That's at 5.
No, it'll be just, we'll
It's a
add it to the
regular meeting.
beginning of our regular meeting
So it's
agenda.
at 6:30?
Yeah, it'll be at 6:30. We'll have our
Committee first.
committee meetings first and everything, so. Yeah. Anyone else with thoughts before we call for a closure?
You don't want to
Chairs that day?
Hold on 1 second.
Okay,
You guys reopening to public comment? Yeah.
It stayed long enough.
Sorry about that, but when you went around the table,
Yeah.
it did come into me. There was a couple of you that talked real soft, and we couldn't hear questions
Oh,
out here.
sure.
She was saying the same thing, we couldn't hear.
Yes.
So maybe
I'll try to speak.
1 or 2 mics or something
Yeah.
might help.
We.
I didn't
Yes.
think of it when I was asked, but when you went around the table, it come up again.
Okay.
So,
Does that actually catch us enough?
The owl?
The owl does.
Owl is pretty good, yeah.
How those?
It's just projecting in this room.
Yeah.
I've watched the recordings before, and other people have.
It's very tough. I'd say, just to speak to this, because I've thought about it a lot, is that we move from school to school to school to school, and to bring a very large and expansive AV system with us everywhere we go. I mean, there's other schools, I think of Auburn, actually, quite a bit, because they meet in like the city council chambers. They don't actually meet in any of their schools, and they sit there at a podium with microphones and have a big system, because they all take advantage of that. I mean, part of me feels like it's a bigger issue than just trying to get a couple of microphones, but it's funny. Bree and I were talking about this on the phone earlier about some other things around that. I expect we might even bring that up at a meeting in the future. But for right now, unfortunately, we're trying to just get by with what we have. So, yeah. But thank you. I mean, we're just trying to because I know Judith was making an issue of it too. So apologize. Yeah. With that said, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I do.
Oh, you do.
Kyle was first.
Kyle was first, is there a
Alex was
second?
second.
Alex was second, all right. All those in favor?
Sure.
Okay.
She didn't count for that.
He just turned his head this way.
What?